Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our regular council meeting for Wednesday, May 20th. It is 2:04 p.m. and I'll call this meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge the town of Midland is located on land which is traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people, now known as the Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Beausoleil First Nation, Rama First Nation, and Georgina Island First Nation. This territory is within Pre-Confederation Treaty 5 and Treaty 16 and included within the Williams Treaties of 1923. Town of Midland recognizes located on land which is traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and historic homeland of the Métis, and that our town is home to a large and diverse community of Indigenous people. I'd now like to deliver the following safety message. If the fire alarm should activate, please exit the room in an orderly fashion. Proceed to the evacuation assembly area, which is located in the upper parking lot. You may exit through the main entrance, those double glass doors there. Make an immediate left. Proceed out the front doors or through the secondary exit back here. And up the stairs, check the door for heat before opening, and if it's safe, exit onto the second floor, turning right and proceeding out the door in front of you. Our washrooms are located on the second floor, and elevators located just outside the main entrance. As Midland has a respectful workplace policy, anyone exhibiting violent or harassing behavior will be asked to leave. Members of the audience are to maintain order and quiet, not to address council except with the permission of the chair. All cell phones, pagers, and other electronic devices, which emit a sound, which always reminds me to do the same, are to be turned off or set to non-audible. No person shall display signs or placards, applaud participants, or debate or engage in conversation, electronic or otherwise, or behave in any way that may disrupt proceedings of council. For anyone requiring a hearing assist device, please advise our clerk, and she will arrange with our IT staff to provide you with that device. Council meetings are recorded on Zoom and are posted to the town's YouTube site. Rogers TV Midland Channel 53 broadcasts and live streams one regular meeting of council per month. When more than one regular meeting is scheduled, the 2026 broadcast schedule is posted on the town's civic web portal. Folks, if I could ask you to join me in a moment of silent reflection, and we'll get into tonight's or this afternoon's agenda. Thank you. Section 6.1 is our open forum, which is currently suspended as of May 1st as the opening of the nomination period, and will remain suspended until the first regular meeting of council in the new council term. Section 6.2 is staff announcements, and I believe that our CEO has a couple of announcements for us this afternoon.
Yes, thank you. So the first announcement for today is we are recognizing the retirement of Mary Jane Howitt from the town of Midland. Mary began her career with the Mary began her career with the town in 2004 as a contract park attendant. And through dedication and strong work ethic, she advanced to the role of full-time gardener in 2021. In this role, Mary played a key part in maintaining and enhancing the town's horticultural program. Her depth of knowledge, attention to detail, and pride in her work helped ensure that Midland's gardens and seasonal displays flourished year after year, leaving a lasting impression on residents and visitors alike. Mary's contributions weren't limited to the growing season. She also played an important role in our winter control program, operating road plows and helping to keep our streets safe from the winter season. Her willingness to step in whenever needed speaks to her commitment to the town and to the community. Mary, your dedication and hard work over the years have made a meaningful impact, and we are truly grateful for your service. Please join me in wishing Mary a joyful, healthy, and well-deserved retirement filled with relaxation, fulfillment, and many new adventures ahead. And if at this time I could ask Mary to come up and have a picture first with council, and then we will get all staff and council together in a picture if that's possible. But please wish me or join me in wishing Mary a very, very happy retirement.
All right, so of probably everyone on council, I probably see Mary the most because at 6 o'clock in the morning, her and her gardening specialists are rolling through town, making sure by the time some of the people get downtown at 9:30, all the work's done. And the displays out on the way into Midland for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that. Mary looks after all that. So I think I probably talk to you more than most of them, but honestly, it's going to be sad not seeing you downtown. Like just making Midland better every day. Like just a thrill. Or for me, it's awesome just to when I see that blue truck and you in it with the seat pulled up by the steering wheel at 6 in the morning. Like it's going to be hard for me. I'm going to really miss seeing you all the time. And what a great no town was lucky enough to have someone as good as you that cared that much about the looks of the town of Midland, and you'll be remembered for a long, long, long time. Thanks.
That's right. She'll be walking with you, but not working this time. So, Councilor McDonald.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. Congratulations, Mary, and appreciate your hard work. The first time I met you was when we were touring the facilities, and there was a floor, or maybe 2 floors, full of canna lily bulbs, and you were sorting them. And I thought, and she's got to put all those in again and take them out again. But I have a question, if you'd be so kind to answer it. I had a brief conversation with the mayor about, and I informed him wrongly that the town of Midland's flower is a red geranium. Well, I've since learned that we don't have a flower. And I would like to propose that we pursue that. I'll have to bring a notice of motion. You see, you have to go through the processes. And I wondered if you would be happy to help me input on how to choose a town flower in the future. Have you ever heard of the red geranium being the town flower? Okay, well, we might have to resurrect that. So I wasn't dreaming. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Now I feel as bad because when you asked me about that, I'm like, I don't think we have a flower. And anyway, it turns out I was right, but we can remedy that. And of course, we still proudly display our Communities in Bloom championship sign on our entrance to the community. That's a little dated now, so I think we need to resurrect that. And perhaps if you, when you get bored of being retired, maybe you can help us with the Communities in Bloom committee that we may form in the next term to try and recompete and make that sign new again. So anyway, thank you so much for all of your years of service and for all the seeds, both literally and figuratively, you planted in our community, and inspiring the youth that work with you and our amazing gardening clubs in town that look after the planters and make everything look so effortless and beautiful all year round. We can't take any credit for that. Belongs entirely to the tireless volunteers and our dedicated staff like yourself. So thank you so much. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to thank Mary for all the years of service, 22 years. I'm truly humbled to have you met today. And you're a role model for Midland as an organization. So I deeply thank you for all the services. And I don't think you're going away as being part of Midland in terms of being part of our community and being that positive impact you had and you will continue to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon, and thank you very much, and congratulations on your retirement. 22 years is a long and commitment to Midland. We thank you. Not only do you have green thumb, but I see you in those large plows, and I'm thinking, wow, you don't see too many women in that position, and seeing you there, and I'm sure other women or girls, little girls, look at you as you drive by in the plow and say, hey, like, there's an avenue or you could open doors for for careers for women. So thank you for that, and you will be missed.
That was the green thumb, by the way. I'm not washing this hand after shaking yours because I need a couple of my plants at home to be revived. So we'll see if it works.
So through your worship, I have a second announcement. The one person is retiring, leaving us. I have an announcement for another person that is joining us. So I'm pleased to formally welcome Heather Miller, who's joined us on May 11th as our new Director of Finance / Treasurer. So Heather brings with her an impressive 26 years of experience in finance and audit, spanning the private, nonprofit, and municipal sectors. She is a CPA and has more than 12 years of management experience. Her background includes strong expertise in budget development, which is exciting, financial planning and reporting, and ensuring the safeguards of municipal assets are all grounded in a commitment to high quality, customer-focused service delivery. Heather's leadership style is centered around sound decision-making and operational effectiveness, and building collaborative service-oriented teams. These are qualities that are aligned very well with our organization and the direction we are continuing to take as a municipality. So Heather comes to us from the city of Barrie, where she spent the past 17 years and just shy of 18 years in senior roles, various senior roles. And during this time, she contributed significantly to the financial initiatives, long-term planning, and meaningful organizational improvements. Her depth of municipal experience, coupled with her strong commitment to public service, will be a tremendous asset for our team as we continue to strengthen our financial stewardship and support the needs of our growing community. So please join me in extending a warm welcome to Heather, and we are so excited that she has joined the town.
Thank you very much and welcome, Heather. And I know that you have lots of work to do because we have had a little gap where we've had our person acting in your position. Our CAO has been helping out in that department. Finance is such a pivotal department for what we do municipally. So it's great to have someone with your experience at the helm, and we look forward to great things. And I'm sure Councillor Emeritus will have all kinds of questions for you, and as things progress in the remainder of this term, and if any of us are back next term, we'll be diving right into budget, and that'll be your first experience with a budget with Midland. So welcome, and thank you very much for choosing Midland. Sure, Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to welcome Heather to the team and great, I guess, resume that was just read out. LinkedIn, I love it. But first time I met Heather was, at the Earth Cleanup Day, and she was volunteering to help clean up Midland. So I want to thank her for that. Not she's only cleaning the books, she's cleaning our streets. Thank you.
Yeah, no cook in the books, just clean it. Yeah, that's right. Did you find any change while you're rifling through the cleanups of the park? Just put that into the general revenue. All right, folks. So we had a brief in-camera session before coming here, or opening the regular meeting. So I'll ask Council, Section 7 hearing declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor Patel, I think you had one you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, thank you, Worship, again. Just declaring, I, Councillor Patel, declare potential pecuniary interest on agenda item 10.4.2 CSR item, CSR 2026-055 short-term rental licensing bylaw framework for the following reason. The reason being, I I happen to be part of the short-term rental as well as in the innkeeper's business as well. So that is a direct conflict. Thank you.
Thank you. And the clerk has that declaration from previous matters, but we'll make sure that's filed accordingly. All right, I've got a motion here arising from our closed meeting discussion, moved by Councillor Reese, seconded by Deputy Mayor Prost. The council receives information and confirm the direction provided in the confidential verbal report and update provided by the Chief Administrative Officer and Executive Director, Community and Growth at the regular meeting of council closed session held today, May 20th, 2026, with respects to the Bomb Beach Road RFP. Council, we've had our discussion in camera. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carries. Next, moved by Councillor Bald, seconded by Councillor Patel. The council receives information and confirm the direction provided in confidential verbal report and update provided by Chief Administrative Officer and Executive Director, Community and Growth at the regular council meeting closed session held today, May 20th, 2026, with respect to the Midland Bay Landing RFP. Council, we've had our discussion in camera. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Next, moved by Councillor Meredith, seconded by Councillor Ball, that the contents of the regular council meeting with closed session agenda for May 20, 2026 be approved as amended. That being item 10.4.4 CSR 2026-057 2026 property tax rate bylaw. There was a revision to the recommendation adjusting the figure from 3.44% to 3.15%, just to clear up some ambiguity and a valid question that came from reading the original report. So not a material change other than the number has been updated so that it removes ambiguity on what that report's about. I don't know that that report was pulled. Was it pulled tonight? Or this afternoon? I gotta get used to saying this afternoon. No, anyway, so for those watching along, that's the only change. You can see that change live online if you click on our live agenda. So council, with that, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next, moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the items and related recommendations contained within the May 20th, 2026 consent agenda as consent items having been considered by council be adopted with the exception of, as the following four reports. Item 10.4.2 CSR 2026-055 short-term rental licensing bylaw framework. 10.4.3 CSR 2026-056 temporary use bylaws. Recommendation file ZBA 0126 475 Bayshore Drive, 527 Len South Boulevard, 165 and 200 King Street. And item 10.4.6 CSR 2026-059 official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment recommendation report. File OPA 0324 ZBA 0324 address being 983 Yonge Street. And lastly, item 10.4.7 CSR 2026-060 Ontario's Best Butter Tart Festival sidewalk usage by businesses, all of which will be considered under section 17 reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration, which includes presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. Council, anything on the consent agenda you want to call out, quick question, comment on before we pass it all in one fell swoop? Nope. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right. Moved by Councillor Bald, seconded by Councillor Meredith. The council resolve into committee of the whole. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We are in committee of the whole, passing it over to Deputy Mayor.
Okay, moving forward at number 12, public meeting or hearing. There are none. Presentations, there are none. 14, Integrity Commissioner recommendation report, there are none. Deputations and petitions, there are none. 16, committee and local board delegation or memo, there are none. 17, reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration includes presentations and by consultants regarding a report under consideration. CSR 2026-059 official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment recommendation report. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Patel and Councillor Major. Okay, the motion is that staff report CSR 2026-059 official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment recommendation report, file number OPA 03-24 and ZBA 03-24, address 983 Yonge Street, dated May 20th, 2026 be received, and one, that council approve the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment as outlined in staff report CSR 2026-059, and that the draft bylaw set out in attachment 3 of this report to adopt official plan amendment number 5 to the Town of Midland official plan passed and enacted, and the draft bylaw set out in amendment 4, or attachment 4 of the report to amend the Town of Midland comprehensive zoning bylaw numbers 2004-90 be passed and enacted. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Councillor McDonald?
So we're referring to the housing development on Yonge Street. Thank you. And thank you for the very detailed report. Although I recognize I'm going to read my notes because then I won't miss anything, hopefully. I recognize the importance of housing development and understand that Midland, like many communities, are facing pressure for additional housing option. Growth is necessary and inevitable. However, I believe growth must occur responsibly and with careful consideration for the long-term environmental health of the community, especially Little Lake and the surrounding area. Little Lake is one of Midland's treasured natural assets. It contributes not only to the beauty and character of our town, but also to recreation, wildlife habitat, stormwater retention, and the overall environment and well-being of the community. My concern is whether the development of this scale, including detached homes, semi-detached townhouses, and 2 apartment buildings, my concern is that it would negatively impact the lake and the surrounding ecosystem if it's not carefully managed. The report does address that the comprehensive environmental studies are completed and stormwater management plans are designed. But the report also addresses the concerns from Severn Sound Environmental Association that states Little Lake appears to be in a fluctuating and marginal state, that even with an improved water design allowing more intensive residential land use in this area would increase the impervious surface, the runoff, the nutrient loading. It would place further pressure on the lake, which is already exhibiting signs of water quality degradation. Once natural areas are compromised, they are extremely difficult and almost impossible to restore. The report proposes mitigation and measures in preparing a tree protection plan and incorporating low impact development. Let me point out that the development Seasons on Little Lake has clear-cut property on the other side of the lake and is not being developed. Bayport Development has several cleared service properties and not being developed. It would not make sense to me to encourage the completion. It would make sense to me to encourage the completion of these first before we start another development. Midland's official plan specifically states that the town recognizes the importance of protecting, restoring, and enhancing the natural environment. As council, we've discussed reviewing our natural heritage designated properties and the mapping of environmentally sensitive lands. I'm hopeful that the mayor, the deputy mayor, and my fellow councillors will make this a priority. The decision we make today will shape the environment legacy we leave tomorrow. So for the environmental concerns and the fact that we have other developments that aren't being completed, I can't support this particular plan because of the density and my love of Little Lake. Thank you.
Counselor Ball.
Thank you. I also have density concerns. I think that we have had housing pushed on us from the province because of the housing shortage that we are all experiencing. And we have approved so many developments, including one from this specific developer. I think that that development is great. It makes a lot of sense, to build up outside of our town and move in a lateral way instead of the density that we are seeing, especially on such an already populated road. We had problems speeding with there. We're no longer able to control that based off of the provincial amendment to traffic cams. And we also don't have, I know that it's not our problem, it's the school board's problem, but we don't have a school for these to grow. And that was my concern with the developer previously on Bomb Beach. It's the same school zone as their development in Bomb Beach. So we're actually adding more to that school zone already. And that will be a school board issue, but first it's a resident issue and we are for the residents. And I don't think that a development of this size and magnitude is in the right place in our town. So I'm not for this.
Counselor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Thank you for the report. Great report, lots of information to make a sound decision. I do recognize comments made by Councillor Councillor McDonald and Councillor Ball. I do not disagree with them. I also don't disagree with the fact that we need housing and we're in a settlement area in the report. I do have concerns with the runoff of Little Lake Park, the 30-meter buffer zone. I do have concerns with the high density of the project when it comes to our winters and where we're going to put the snow in and so forth. I understand we're not approving the actual scope of the housing right now. We're approving the zoning and so forth. So I would like to see, and I'm not I could give this to our planning department. For the last at the bottom of the street where that would be the catchment area of, let's say, runoff of salt and so forth, contaminants going into Little Lake. There's a 30-meter buffer zone. And is there a catchment area? And what does that look like? And is it at minimum? Would it be at minimum standard, or could we elevate that to a more significant standard? And are those to mitigate the runoff going into Little Lake would be my first question. The other one would be if we increase that buffer zone to eliminate the bottom portion of that housing, and would that make a difference and have that all as parkland? And the intensification of the I guess of the housing units, again with the snow load and parking issues. I certainly don't want to get back into what we see on Cook Drive. That is just a mess in the winter with parking. So those are my concerns right now, and haven't really decided on which way I'm going to go. But if I can get those questions answered a little bit more insight, thank you.
Through you, Deputy Chair, to Councillor Meredith. Yeah, to answer the first question, I guess relates to the stormwater management pond and that 30-meter buffer. The stormwater management pond would be outside of that 30-meter buffer, so that would still act as a naturalized area. We are, as part of the two applications before us tonight, there will be a subsequent plan of subdivision that will need to come in. It was the approach we were taking with that is that when that application comes in, that's when the stormwater management design and plan will come into play. It is part of the OPA and ZBA. It was a preliminary stormwater report. We've also allowed some flexibility in the zoning. So those lots along the southern portion of the Russ Howard extension, they could also be utilized for more stormwater management pond area. So at this moment in time, there is still more design work that would need to be done, and especially to address the quality and quantity impacts with the impervious surface, with the roads and the roof runoff and the pavement on the properties. And that would be a task and a job that our engineering department would assist the applicant and ourselves with reviewing that document at the time the subdivision comes in. Furthermore, if you noticed in the amending official plan document, we've also included that stormwater management pond does utilize the low impact development design. There's some new standards out there in the engineering world that can certainly be integrated into the pond to further help the quality and quantity of the water going into the system. Noted in the staff report, there was mention about, you know, if there can't be that balance with the quality and quantity in the post and pre-development, it may impact the number of lots that can go into that subdivision. Again, that's something that we will address and the applicant will deal with during the residential draft plan subdivision phase or application. So I hope that has more or less responded to your first question. And just, sorry, just for in regards to the second question, do you mind just repeating that so I make sure I answer it properly for you?
Yeah, I think you answered it in just what you just said, because that'll come later on in design. It was about the snow load and what and the parking issues, like sort of like what we have on Cook Drive right now. I don't want to mimic that same the problems that we have.
Yep.
But again, that'll be yeah.
Yeah, and as you stated, sorry, thank you for the clarifying that. Just to your comment earlier too, you know, the two applications before us now are more of a policy and establishing the land use permissions on those lands, and really the detailed work and layout of the subdivision will come through at the draft plan of subdivision stage. Even if when that application comes in, there's an opportunity just for add a number of conditions that go along with the approval of that subdivision, and a lot of these technical documents will also be required for that. And just even the wording that we've utilized for the official plan document, talk about development and or site alteration. So, you know, before any works, removal of trees, site alteration can occur, we've asked and made sure that there is these, you know, the ecological offsetting, the tree preservation plan, stormwater management design, that those are all done, you know, before there is any literal site alterations on the property or other further development.
Counselor East.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. So Andy, this is just more of a follow-up question about catch basins. On a percentage, what would you say the percentage of keeping contaminants out of Little Lake Park or any sort of water that's in an area of a catch basin? What kind of success rate does a catch basin have? Is it 100% success rate, or are we going to be leaching contaminants into the lake park eventually? The reason why I'm asking this question is because, as you know, this property is on a hill.
Yeah.
When snow melts, it's going to run. It doesn't matter. We use salt, right? So what I need to know, or if you could just give me a bit of guidance, because very much like Bill, I'm flip siding here, right? I see the positivity on creating housing. We need it, but we also see the need to keep Little Lake Park safe to use for generations to come.
Sure. Thank you for the question, through you, Deputy Prost. So I don't have a specific, I think that would be more of a question or reviewed as part of the draft plan of subdivision. I'm not sure if there's you know, a certain percentage really. There are some regulations and some guidelines that have to be achieved. But our engineering department would assist us with reviewing the stormwater management, the functional servicing report, any grading plans, implications. Because you're right, you know, the slope does go from Young down towards the lake. So, you know, in just some discussions with the applicant too, they're aware that stormwater is a big component to this, even as it relates to the apartment buildings. You know, when those developments, if they come forward, they themselves are going to have to utilize their own sort of stormwater management, partially, or you know, some of the pond would be utilized for those apartment buildings, but there would also need to have on-site type of infrastructure also to accommodate. So Short answer is it's part of this application. I don't really have the answer for that question at this moment. But again, it's part of the next stage, which would be that draft plan of subdivision. That's when the detailed design and all these technical documents and would be looked at and examined to make sure that they're meeting the standards.
So just as a follow-up, if we approve this today and then we get into the schematic drawing and we don't like what we see, we can tweak it, or like this is a really important decision because we're talking about our generations of kids using Little Lake Park, and we just invested in a beautiful splash pad. If we can't use the lake in 10 years, right? So like I'm even, and I don't want to be that negative Nancy, right? But we have to look at all facets of this because once it's done, it's done. And just like Councillor McDonald said, we can't draw this back, right? So once these houses are built, once these cars are parked, once the oil drips from the engines, where is this going to go? It's got to go somewhere. So like when I walk Shufelt, for instance, in the wintertime, and we're into fall, and there's a path that runs right along the waterfront, that is just gushing water straight into the lake park. And I'm guessing that, you obviously have filtration through land, and that's the goal, to filter it before it hits the lake park. But my gut is telling me that it's not 100% safe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just on that, so the enhanced stormwater requirements are 80% for the total suspended solid removal. That's a minimum. There's also an oil grit separator within the system as well, so that'll provide further. So there is a lot of checks and balances to make sure that it's as clean as possible that goes out to Little Lake, as well as for surface water when there's runoff. Pre and post runoff is to be the same. It can't be worse. So so there is, like Mr. Warson's indicated, once we get to that plan of subdivision approval, there will be further refines to that. If the stormwater management pond needs to be increased in size, that's why we provide the flexibility within the zoning to allow within the various zones within the subdivision. So 80%, that's what Mitch is telling me.
So this is just the last follow-up then. So actually I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Mayor Gordon.
Thank you. So, I mean, the concerns we're hearing tonight are all valid. It's just that almost all these concerns are dealt with at the draft plan of subdivision stage, which comes later. It's actually next in the process. So what we're being asked to consider tonight is just allowing the landowner to simply begin that process. This development has to conform to all the latest environmental standards, which are many times better than the neighboring developments that were built many years ago to older standards. So, basically pausing new development because of old development's lack of good standards makes no sense. I mean, the new development is going to be held to a better standard. And if we were really rich in this community, we could probably go to the neighboring developments that just have swales and just let, water sail down the road and into Little Lake. And we could put in stormwater systems at a significant cost though, right? So, I mean, this is the problem with progress, is that you can't fix easily the sins of the past. It's much like what we're doing by digging up roads and separating sewers. Everything used to be all combined. Now we're separating it, but becoming a great expense to us. Which leads me to my next point, that $35 million of provincial funding that was awarded to Midland, record funding for our municipality, was directly contingent on our pledge to approve housing, that the water, wastewater upgrades that we're doing with this money and the expansion is funded to serve. If we happily take this money from the province, which we haven't got yet, by the way, and we start, saying no to development, even though it's being proposed and approved to the latest standards, I believe that funding's in jeopardy. And I would really have a hard time defending, the government clawing that back from us. The other developer problems in our community that have kind of failed to launch, whether it's Hanson or the struggles with the economy that have been, around the developments at Bayport, we can't use those failures to launch as a barrier to actually get new growth and housing built by this proponent, because he has nothing. He's a completely different developer. So it wouldn't be fair to, pin and cloak this new developer in the problems of other developers for developments that have been going on for decades. So this is a new developer with, two big developments proposed for our community, one in our neighboring community in Tay. And there's no reason to put, the guilt or the shame of, or challenges of other developers that have really failed to thrive and use that as a reason to deny this one. The other thing is that responsible and careful growth has been contemplated, and those are foundational things with me and this whole council. We believe in that responsible and careful growth, not just unchecked growth. And it's all contemplated and addressed in the many studies that have led to this recommendation report that's before us tonight, and ultimately satisfied our planners, our professional planning staff, that this zoning bylaw amendment conforms to all the necessary land use planning policies from the province to the county to our own policies in municipality. This has checked all of the boxes. If we were to deny what is otherwise a valid and conforming application, like the one we have in front of us tonight, as cautioned in the report, it will very likely result in an appeal, additional costs, because OLT appeals are very expensive, a high unlikelihood of success because we'd be going against our own professional staff. Our own staff would actually be called as witnesses by the proponent and would be testifying on the proponent's behalf, not ours. We'd have to outsource and hire planners that somehow would look at all of our professional planners' advice and go, yeah, that's not right. There's no logic behind denying what is otherwise a complete, thorough, tested, and an application that addresses the resident concerns that we heard, addresses the environmental concerns that we heard, and we also innately know ourselves. We don't need people to tell us how important Little Lake is. I mean, we're the stewards of all of this community, so we know. And this addresses all of that. So if we, choose to not to set this aside and vote it down, we're going against our own policies. And this thing is deserving of approval. There's a lot of time and effort that's gone into it, as you saw from the report. It checks all the boxes from the province right on down. And there are many, many more steps before a shovel ever hits the ground in this property, where opportunities to make sure that wastewater or stormwater management is properly addressed so that we don't have this downhill deluge into Little Lake as we do in some of the neighboring developments that are now many years old. But that's cool. That's the way it was approved back then. We wouldn't approve something like that now. And actually we couldn't approve something like that now. So there's nothing that I've heard so far, and certainly nothing I've read in the report that gives me any reason or any cause for concern that this zoning bylaw amendment and its official plan amendment shouldn't be approved this evening. I believe it certainly should be. And I do look forward to seeing that draft plan of subdivision and council having a chance to make sure that any of our concerns about the actual design, layout, density, drainage patterns, all of that stuff is all going to be things we can get our fingers on and get into the weeds when it gets presented to us. But none of that happens if we don't allow this private landowner who wants to develop housing in our community, not just any old housing, but a whole bunch of rental apartments, which we desperately need, as well as the towns. If we don't allow this first step to happen tonight, none of that other stuff happens. We have no chance or say. And quite frankly, let's say if we didn't lose on appeal, which I'd be shocked because the province is overruling anybody that's getting in the way of housing, as Councillor Ball has already alluded to. It would just be the next council to get the same application again and it would get approved and housing gets built. So I don't see any reason for delay. This is the perfect time while the economy is kind of crappy to approve these kind of things, because there's several years of work still needing to go before we're ever going to see shovels in the ground. And tonight will be step one of a journey that allows this council and subsequent councils plenty of input on what ultimately gets built in our community and when it gets built in our community.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. I agree, and I couldn't have said it half as well. I think Councillor McDonald had her hand up first, and then Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. And yes, the mayor does present a very strong opinion on this. I beg to differ that being responsible and careful with our growth would mean doing our natural heritage plan first. We're asked to change the zoning in this area. and it's putting the cart before the horse. We're just picking here and there to change our natural heritage when we don't have a big picture. To me, that would be being responsible and careful growth. So if we want to postpone this, that would make sense. But 20% more in regards to Mr. Ferguson's, 80% well treated, another 20% in Little Lake Park it might be just what will make it not usable whatsoever, not very attractive. So I still can't, everything you're saying makes sense. The provincial funding can be addressed with other developments that are on the books. And I don't think this is the one that's going to turn them away. So I respectfully ask that we do not support this. And if you do, time will tell. Thank you.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. A lot of that funding will be directed towards the Yonge Street corridor. So I think that's kind of a fear-mongering attitude, quite frankly, to suggest that they would claw back funding because we don't approve this one development. Also, responsible growth does not mean what we are doing. The province has lost sight of that. Our staff, yes, would have to go to court and they would testify that they are within the provincial requirements. The provincial requirements are not what's best for our residents. We are here to sit and go, in some cases, against the province because the province is not always doing what is best for the residents of Midland. We've approved over 5,000 homes this term and more will come. And that is, quite frankly, I don't think responsible growth for our community right now. We already don't have doctors. We already don't have room in our waiting room at our hospitals. We have overcrowded schools. This is not responsible growth. And those things will not change. In fact, they will get worse. And just because we have to go and stand up to the province, that's our job. We are a municipal level government and we are here for our residents. So we can't just bend at every province will because they do not necessarily know what's best for our residents and we do. And just because they have all these rules in place and they've completely lost sight of that doesn't mean we should as well. We should be taking this stuff to court and standing up for our residents. This is not responsible growth.
Councillor Patel, then Councillor East.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to comment on this report here. I mean, it clearly says in the conclusion, planning staff are in the opinion of the proposed application is consistent with the provincial policy and County of Simcoe and as well as Town of Midland. I have full faith in our dedicated staff that they're doing their due diligence with this land use plan, and it's our job to approve it. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions, but we should not be bringing in our own emotional decisions in terms of how the land gets used and where it gets used. We're here to make land use plan approval. So I fully trust the judgment of the staff and their hard work that they're putting through to approve this plan. Thank you.
Councillor East.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. I remembered what I was going to ask. So maybe Steve, I'll ask you. In regards to the catch basins, if we approved this development to move forward, can we ask the developer to have the catch basin set up before we actually, okay, let me back up. Hanson's, for instance, clear cutted the entire property. Now we saw spikes in the Lake Park. I'm sure if we had something in place ahead of time, while this Hanson's is sitting for 2 or 3 or 4 years, contaminating Little Lake Park slowly. I haven't been at the end of the property to see if there is catch basin set up for Hanson's. But what I'm saying is that with this development, knowing that it's going to take a few years, once they clear cut all the trees, can we ask them to have the storm basins set up so that during the years of development, we're not having runoff into Lake Park? We did see the feedback from what happened with Hanson's. It was a question that Mayor Bill Gordon asked, and we got the answer that it was a direct result of Hanson's, correct? So what my question is can we approach the developer the minute they clear cut all the trees to have a system set up so that we don't contaminate Midland while this is being built?
Through you, Madam Chair, that would, I wouldn't feel comfortable answering that question. I think that falls more with the engineering team when they do their review. Other subdivisions, when they have those types of ponds, they are approved. So in the case of Hanson, their pond is approved by the ministry. So when they do clear cut as part of a subdivision, they are required to put siltation fences up to control sediment runoff into Little Lake, or if it's not abutting a water source in abutting properties. So there will be other types of mechanisms that we can use, but then the engineering team would be the ones that would be reviewing that, as they're the experts, to make sure that the runoff is kept at its minimalist, to make sure that there's no impact to Little Lake.
Is there some way while we're sitting here to get that answer before we say yes to anything? Just the truth is that this is going to take years to develop. And the minute that you clear cut, we have a hill and nothing's going to stop that. Hanson's a bit different because it's a tad bit flat, then you got that slight hill at the end, right? But this is a completely different situation because of the hill, right? So what I would love to know is, can we get that answer before we give them an answer?
Through you, Madam Chair, I just messaged Mitch, and perhaps Mitch can come down and provide a comment before council makes the decision. Thank you.
Mayor Gordon.
Like, just a quick follow-up. I think this will be part of the subdivision plan, because I would assume this is not a big bang. This is going to be a phased approach. And I believe the proponent indicated at one of our meetings early on in this that the plan was to start at the front of the property, which is the flat part, and start with the rental apartment buildings first, because they're the ones we most desperately need. And they're right on the bus route and all these other reasons. So I don't know if the plan is to go in and clear cut the whole property. Sometimes you need to do that for servicing, but that wouldn't happen right away, because servicing has to be approved and the designs have to be done first. So it's difficult when we compare it to the Seasons property, just because that's decades old and things were done in a different order by different councils and different staff. But this one here, I think the proponents in the audience, along with this planner, is hearing all of this. And probably, I think we're going to see phasing on something like this, where whatever mitigation steps engineering is going to tell us about would likely apply, some of it right away and some of it later on as you start to approach the slope and get closer to the lake, because it's very valid concerns. But I won't try and speak for Mitch on this one. I've heard this spiel a few times, so it's banging around in the old gray matter.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon, through Deputy Mayor. Could I just get the question again, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything on the way down?
Sure. So I'll try to repeat it. What my question was, can we have not roadblocks, but I want to have the information and the knowledge known that if we're going to approve this to move forward, that the storm catch basins are put in before we clear cut. The reason being is that I don't want to see the salt runoff because of the hill, right? So I addressed Hanson's. Hanson's been years and years and years. We did see results of spiking in the lake park due to it, right? And I'm well aware that that's older technology, but even Shoefelt, that's only, 15 years old. I'm seeing the runoff through that storm the minute that fall hits and the snow runs off. So what my concern is that if we're going to clear cut, I would really love to have a safe area to keep all contamination out of Little Lake Park during the process of building. That's essentially what I want to know. Can we have this in place before we say yes to this today, so that we know that there's a storm basin that's going to catch any any disturbing for the Lake Park?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I guess the short answer to that is yes, we can do that. There's a few different ways we can do it. Maybe I'll walk you through the process, how it'll be built. The first step that we always do on a major development like this is erosion and sediment control. So the whole site would get silt fenced and check dams and straw bales and things like that to slow flow down and keep any sediment and contaminants within the site itself. That's step number one. Step number two is then they go into vegetation and tree removals and whatnot. Once that's done, then they start with their underground infrastructure, and the drainage and storm works is normally one of the first ones to be done. It's just really site management 101. You do your drainage first, and the site is much easier just to work with. So maybe that answers part of your question. Also through the design, we'll make sure that the design has all of the appropriate design features in it to reduce the contaminant load. So I think I heard earlier you asked the question about what percentage is it successful, basically. And what we really do these days is they call it a treatment train approach. So there's multiple different types of facilities within a storm system. Each of them have a percentage effective, and it compounds over it. So for example, an oil and grit separator that normally is upstream of a pond, those are required to be a minimum of 80% efficient. So 80% of suspended solids are removed. Then it would go to the pond itself. It'll also have a percentage that it's effective. If there's any upstream catch basins or swales or LID features, those will also have a percentage effective. So as you compound down the line to the final outlet to the lake, you have removed a very high percentage of contaminants over it. We can also then work with the developer and have an appropriate construction management plan that dictates, what steps must be done throughout the development. So in the case of this one, because of Little Lake on the slope, we will be looking at the drainage and what steps should be done first before they can move on and things like that. So I think through proper design and management, it can be managed accordingly. SSCA will be involved in it as well. We'll definitely be getting their input. You mentioned the Schufelt Crescent subdivision, which is 2 subdivisions over. It's an older one now. I think it's probably back to the mid 2000s, 20 plus years. Some older design things that have changed, technology have changed. It's a bigger wet pond, so not a lot of treatment train approach to that one, just big pipe to big pond. The pond then has a certain amount of time to diffuse and settle, and then there's an outlet to it. Right beside it, the Russ Howard Keller Drive subdivision, it's a completely different design, low impact development. There is no pond period to that. And it is also successful. We did extensive storm monitoring on it through the subdivision agreement, and it was deemed successful. So lots of different ways that you can, skin the cat per se in stormwater management, and it'll be our job to make sure that they are providing an appropriate design for this topography of land.
Sylvia, the only follow-up question that I have then. So in regards to we build this, new development, and 5-10 years later, we find that our technology has suffered just like Schufelt. Do we have any ability to go back and correct these things? Like for instance, when I walk Schufelt, the minute that snow's melting, you got to see what's pumping in Little Lake Park. It's full throttle, right? It's not like a light little river. It's just coming like a stream, right? I once again, I see the value of this. I really do for people, but I don't see the value if we don't have a park or a lake that can't be used in 20 years. And once again, 80% removal is great, but that 20% over 10 years, 20 years could end up being really bad. And I know that the developers are here listening, so they know how important this is. But it's not just to us, it's our community. It very much like Jamie Lee, our Councillor Ball said, sometimes you have to fight the government, right? If they don't take what's best for our residents into concern. If Little Lake Park isn't usable in 20 years, what's the point of us having Little Lake Park, right? So going back to the original question, can we go back and change things in storm sewers or storm ponds if we see problems?
Ultimately, yeah, we can go back to other facilities. It costs money, right, to do so. So I will maybe add on a pretty important piece that I missed in my first little spiel. With any development, and not necessarily older developments, newer developments, with the wellhead protection areas and things like that, we have an obligation to make sure that the post-development, so after development, does not have any more runoff than before development. So if a property like this one is treed, is all pervious, lots of water can soak into the ground and whatnot, there's an obligation of the developer to ensure there's no more runoff after the post-development site. So if you had a field, just an open field, and then you paved that field, that pavement could not have any more water come off of it than the day it was a field. And that's when we start to get into the low impact designs. We control the flows, pond sizes, we have orifice plates. There's lots of different ways that we can do it. So in the Shoe-Felt Crescent one, based on the age of that one, I don't know off the top of my head if the pre and post development flow requirements were in place at that time. So that may be why it could be a little different. Could we go back and change it? Yes, but it's a reverse domino effect. You want to change the outlet of the pipe, you have to start going up the stream. You may have to upsize all of the pipes and different structures and things like that. So my preference is to design it correctly the first time, and so that we don't have to do that. We have through it's called the CLI, the Consolidated Linear Infrastructure ECA, which is a permit that we have from the Ministry of Environment for all of our stormwater works in the town of Midland. Previously, you used to get an environmental compliance approval directly for one storm pond for a development from the ministry. They've gone away with that, and now we have one permit for town-wide, and then we have a design manual. And if a project meets all of the requirements within the design manual, the project is essentially pre-approved from the ministry standpoint, and the town has the sole authority to grant it approval to go. We can change our requirements if we want to go higher than the ministry. However, the developer could appeal it back to the ministry, and the ministry could jump in and have the final say. So we do have some of those abilities. We haven't in the past. We follow their design manual, as do a lot of municipalities, especially those that are in conservation authorities and stuff that may have more stringent requirements in some areas. So we do have that ability to do that as well, but we haven't done it in the past. And I don't think it's needed. I think through proper design that we can control it to make sure. And then on the point, again, just to reiterate how I said the 80% suspended solid removal, that's for one feature within it. You're going to have 5 or 6 or 7 of those different facilities within a storm system, each of those compounds. So it's 80% on 80% on 80%. So at the end of the day, we're talking like 94, 96%, things like that. So it's a lot different than there's 20% that we're missing, right? So, and one more key fact, just to make everybody aware, is in the design manuals for stormwater, there's a requirement for all flows up to what we call the 5-year storm to be controlled within the piping systems and whatnot. But the pond itself has to handle the 100-year storm. So in a big storm event, there shouldn't be a fear that the pond will overflow and things like that. We designed the full pond and the subdivision to handle that all as a whole. And then there is obviously emergency overflows in the event of something that goes wrong, but everything is designed for the worst possible scenario.
We have Councillor Major, Councillor Patel, and then Councillor Emeritus.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So I respect what Councillor McDonald and Councillor Ball said, and all you hear is housing, affordable housing, ordinary housing, places for people to stay. And the other thing too is, why do we have a staff that puts time and effort into doing a proper report, and then we just go, well, oh well, we're not using it. So yeah, there's a few things, but I'm going to support this. One, we need housing, and it's just, we can't just keep saying no, not in my backyard, not here, not there. Like, we just, somewhere along the line, we've got to get things done in this town, and being not getting anything done, then no one will want to come in and put money or effort or anything into this place. It'll be we'll just go stagnant.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sobel, for that great educational piece. I mean, I wish I had a teacher like you in high school, because I'd be designing this kind of system. I mean, after what you've said, this will be the most environmentally responsible approval we've done in Midland. I mean, based on what I'm hearing. And it's great that staff and the developer are working hand in hand to make sure that we're having minimal impact on the environment. I mean, look at all the other subdivisions. They did nothing. And here we are trying to mitigate 96% almost through using technology and, the storm management pond to mitigate the issues on Little Lake. If anything, we should be worried about the other subdivisions that haven't done it and do something about it rather than focusing on this one. So I think we're focused on the wrong thing here, wrong development. We should be going back to what was not done based on what I heard today to prevent Little Lake from getting polluted. So I kudos to staff, kudos to the developer for being environmentally conscious on this site plan. Thank you.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. My question was already answered. Mr. Sobel did, the question was going to be the 80%. And by the time you go through the filtering system, all the different avenues and what that percentage would be, look like possibly filtering into Little Lake. So I also had I sit on the SSEA and I did ask the question, it wasn't just this past week when this agenda came out, but it had been on my mind at previous meetings. And I asked the scientists there about, the flow of, they knew of the property. Of course, staff consulted with the SSEA. And I asked her about the technologies of these runoffs, and she had some good information for me that there's the technologies for this type of situation. There's many out there. You could have minimum and you can go through the roof. So and when that time comes in the when council has its say, whether it's this council or next council, I hope you'll make them aware of our concerns were, and not just go by the minimum standards and maybe get to like 99%. But maybe by then there'll be more technologies out. So I like what I heard, and good conversations here for sure. And because Little Lake is what we want to protect here, and as well as try to get some housing as well. And with the other developments on the, Cornell Drive, I don't think Cornell Drive has anything down that road. It's where my parents live. In 1980, we moved there, and there's nothing there. And then you have Schufelt and Keller. So I don't think it'd be in my position to axe this, say no to this development when the other developments are there. And I'm confident with what I've heard with the catch basins and the filtering system that I'm confident that it'll be okay. Thank you.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. Just we did touch on the Hanson property. It's not related to this approval tonight, but we have talked about it a few times, and I just thought it would be worth bringing up because I'm as deeply concerned about runoff coming from that clear cut as anybody else. That expires in October. Like, they've done nothing on it for 4 years. Without getting into disparaging Hanson, they haven't been great partners. But it expires in October, and staff has delegated authority to simply let it die. And of course, the proponent can come back to us and ask the new council, please revive this so I don't have to start from scratch again. And the new council, if they're paying attention to what we're saying now, can put all kinds of conditions on that revival, or simply say, no, you're going to start from scratch, which is expensive and time constraints, not on their side. Maybe they don't care. But if they do want to have this thing revived, that would be the time for us to, put Mitch and his team involved to say, yeah, we'll revive it, but here's conditions you need to meet. And a whole bunch of them can be, one like the second exit out of Walmart, lights getting onto Highway 12, some more mitigation of the runoff and sediment and silt going into our little lake. We can make those preconditions of us reviving that whole subdivision plan that's going to expire in October, which is still in our purview. So think about that, because in October, we may be asked, what do we want to do with this thing? Let it die or not? So it all ties into what we're talking about. We have deep passion and concern about our little lake and its health. And here we are, at the being asked to, or considering maybe not approving new growth because of sins of the past, which would be a real shame. So I'm hoping we approve this, but we have an opportunity, to your point, to actually fix some of the sins of the past, because there's this massive subdivision that is definitely, letting stuff go into the lake that we can put constraints on for it to be revived, assuming the proponents even want it revived, or whoever buys it next, whatever happens to it. So I just want to offer that little bit of hope that without spending staggering sums of money to redo infrastructure in already established neighborhoods, we have this one offender, we have the ability to put some really tough controls on it that could really make a difference for the health of our lake. So I just wanted to add that in, although it's not directly related to this, because we've talked about that subdivision and its impact on the lake a lot tonight. I just wanted to drop that little nugget out there. And of course, if the Hanson folks are watching this, try answering an email and dealing with our staff, and we'd love to help you out. Anyway, there we go. I digress.
One more from Catherine McDonald, and then we'll call the question.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. As I first mentioned, I do recognize the importance of housing development, but I still feel that we should complete the natural heritage plan first. We might say, this is the perfect place. We don't need to be worried about this wooded lot that's in the middle of town. And that's not happening. And the environmental impact study, it says, prepare a tree protection plan. We don't have a tree protection plan. So we don't have anything. When I tried to bring that forward, you said we depend on the county tree protection plan. Is this property big enough to qualify for the county's protection? I'm not sure. It is? Okay. I'll be able to sleep a little bit better tonight. But I still can't support it. It's not anything specific against the developer. I just think that we can develop other places that won't harm our little lake. And Madam Clerk, I request a recorded vote, please.
Okay, I don't disagree with Councillor McDonald, but I'm convinced that we're doing the right thing in voting yes. So, Council, you've heard the motion and we've had discussion. Recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, as the Deputy Mayor has said, you've heard the motion. When I call your name, please say yes or no. Councillor Meredith.
Yes. Yes.
Councillor McDonald.
Oh,
Councillor Bald. Councillor Major.
Yes.
Councillor Patel.
Yes.
Councillor East.
I'm gonna say yes, but please think about the lake.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
No.
Deputy Mayor Prost
Yes.
and Mayor Gordon.
Yes.
The motion is carried 7-2.
Okay, moving on to 17.2 CSR 2026-055 short-term rental licensing bylaw framework. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put this on the floor? Councillor East and Councillor McDonald. Let staff report CSR 2026-055 short-term.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Can you please note that Councillor Patel, who had previously declared a conflict, has left the dais?
Councillor Patel, who's recently declared a conflict of interest on this motion has left the room. Thank you. Okay. The staff report CSR 2026 055 short-term rental licensing bylaw framework dated May 20th, 2026 be received, and that council provides staff direction whether any additional options should be incorporated into the draft bylaw as outlined in attachment 1, and that council provides staff direction to proceed with public consultation efforts in 2026, and that council directs staff to return to council at a future meeting with a summary of comments provided during the public consultation process for the potential implementation of short-term rental accommodation licensing bylaw. We have any comments or questions on this? Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. Glad to see this. This is something we've been talking about now for almost the whole term. Of course, we decided not to pull the trigger on something right away with the MAT implementation. We wanted MAT to phase in and to make sure that it wasn't a train wreck, which it has not been. It's been wonderful. And of course, the pledge with our hotel and motel operators was that we would have a level playing field where anybody involved in the commercial heads and beds industry, which an STR is, even by CRA rules, they would all be playing equally in collecting our MAT, which contributes, of course, entirely to our marketing efforts for stay and play recreational tourism in Midland through our partnership with the county. So we've taken a slow approach, a careful approach. We didn't want to do the knee-jerk reaction of just adopting framework from some other municipality, find and replace, their name to ours and just adopt it. We also wanted to make sure that enough time had passed that court tests, which there will be many against some of the frameworks. We didn't want to adopt one of those frameworks, and we certainly didn't want something as onerous as communities that are plagued with problem operators and problem STRs. Midland is not one of those. We could be at some point, but we're not now. So my overall thing when I speak to folks about this is not a solution in search of a problem. This is just about primarily compelling our STR and B&B operators to be on the same level playing field as our hotel and motel operators in collecting our MAT. But while we're at that, there's certain things that are unique to the STR industry that doesn't apply to the hotels, notwithstanding all the crazy insurance and taxes hotels pay that aren't paid for by people running these businesses out of their homes or in homes they own. So is a laundry list here, and I really appreciate the fact that our bylaw went looking far and wide to try and find a light version of STR that's not onerous, that's not going to be a real inconvenience or a business killing effort by the municipality on our STR operators. One that simply makes sure that it's safe, that there's a responsible person, so at 2 a.m. on the weekend when they have a guest who's out of control in a neighborhood, that it's not the general taxpayer that has to pay for police response and whatever else has to happen. This responsible person or entity that they contract to, it's their problem to deal with, not the residents in the neighborhood and not the broader taxpayer. That's something that's in common with all of these frameworks. We also wanted something, even if it's a simple attestation, that the operator is conforming and pledges to continue to conform to all of our bylaws and safety codes and requirements and code of conduct for their tenants. I don't want to see invasive inspections. Take people at their word that when they do the attestation, that's good enough for me as long as that passes legal muster. And if at some point they're found to be in conflict with that, either because there was a call for service that had somebody heaven forbid litigation, we can rely on the fact that they attested to that fact without having to do wet certifications and all these things on their business. That onus is up to them because they have their own insurance they have to deal with. Of course, being licensed is something that then allows the platform to police the people that offer up their businesses without being part of our program. The platform that does that, Granicus, is very cost effective. Under 10,000 a year. I think it starts at 8 and then goes down to 6. Or if I got that vice versa, it's almost an immaterial spend for a platform that not only polices STRs, but also is the platform that the STR operators use to submit their MAT. So we don't have to stand up yet another solution. I watched this get rolled out in municipalities across the province. Most recently, I've been keenly aware of the one in Wasaga Beach, which just went live this year, using Granicus STRs, and they're brand new with MAT. And Wasaga Beach has a much larger demographic of STRs than Midland does now and is likely to have for some time until we continue to grow. So a careful, simple as possible, just cover the basics type of regulatory framework is what I'm after, with a low cost of entry, a low cost of care and feeding yearly, and at the same time, and it's not really contemplated in here yet, some substantial fines for people who choose to simply ignore joining or participating lawfully in this business in our community. So I think some municipalities will fine per incident per day. It can't be the cost of doing business to simply ignore the regulatory framework, is what I'm getting at. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Other municipalities do this successfully and have for many years, stayed out of court. So I think our wait and see approach that we've taken for the past 3 years is rewarded by the fact that we have the framework for a nice, simple, light STR. If this is, if council agrees today, this goes out to a public information center where our stakeholders in the community are. I don't know how well attended it'll be. There's only 2 people that I've been communicating regularly about this in the community. But even if those 2 attend, good enough for me, right? Let's make sure we get all the input formally captured, much like we do through the Planning Act. If it makes sense, what they're saying, add it to the framework and then bring that back to the draft for implementation. Unless, of course, they just say, I don't want this framework at all, which we may hear. That's not the objective. So the reality here is, despite I've heard from a couple of operators that they'd more than happily voluntarily collect the MAT for us. Well, that's amazing for them to take that stance. We can't hold them to it. And it certainly doesn't require any other operators to voluntarily collect MAT. So the absence of a framework is not an answer for us. If we're serious about MAT, which has been working well in funding activities that are working well in our community and is well adopted and well reviewed by our hotel operators who've been doing all the heavy lifting for us for the past 3 years. The last page of this book is to bring in our STR and B&B operators, so they're all participating, since they all equally, on an economy of scale, of course, but they all equally participate from our marketing efforts to bring more overnight tourism into our community. So long and short of it, this is wonderful. I'm prepared with council to pick and choose from these dots, how many things we'd like to see in the initial framework, or to simply not pick tonight and just say, okay, Rob, have your picks. You've got all these dots. I'm sure you'll have some way for people to put stickers on, and choose which things they think are, red for onerous and I don't want this, and green for, yeah, no problem. It's not a big deal. And we can use that input then to guide the final draft that would come back for us later this summer or early in the fall, with an expected implementation of January or early Q1 2027. Pushing this off till 2028 doesn't make any sense to me. Again, the pledge was to our hotel operators, and they've honored their side of the deal, that we will have some form of way of requiring STR and B&B operators to be part of the team by the end of this term. And I intend to, from my perspective, honor that pledge. And there's no reason why this couldn't go live in January, even though that's not the hot season. That gives everyone a chance to get onboarded, work the bugs out of how to participate, and they'll be live for when that spring arrives and the season starts to take off. And perhaps this will even build the industry in our community, because it'll be simple, easy. Everyone's operating off the same playbook, and they know that we're not out to shut down ghost hotels, and we're not picking on one type of short-term rental or another. Everybody's welcome. It's participatory democracy. It's capitalism, and you're free to augment your personal wealth by having these things, or just help pay your mortgage if you need to rent out a room or a basement in your home. We're supportive of all of that. We just want to make sure it's safe, and that you're benefiting from our marketing techniques and marketing efforts. Therefore, you need to be collecting our municipal accommodation tax. That's the objective of this, and I'm glad that it's here tonight.
Councillor Major and then Councillor Meredith.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. the mayor's already said everything I was thinking of. He took the wind out of my sails, so let's move on to someone else.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. And thank you for the report. Reading the report, I certainly think the Gravenhurst model is the latest one that you pointed out. I think we could even get later on that. I don't want this to turn into something that spirals a little bit out, like we're having downtown Midland with the patios. So I just want to make sure that my main purpose for having an STR bylaw was, I've gotten complaints in residential neighborhoods that STRs that don't have any supervision, ghost landlords, and they're up, throughout the night, 3, 4 in the morning, cars parked on grass and so forth. And we don't have a bylaw that we can enforce, do anything about it. So that's my main goal here, is to get something on paper so that our bylaw department can enforce these infractions. I don't have a problem with commercial STRs, but again, when it comes to MAT and to be fair to the hotels as well, but and to our tourism, that they should be a part of that as well. Whether that MAT is, it's hard to control on or report on the reporting part. And this Granicus, I guess, model, there's a cost to that. So whether we get involved with that, Mayor Gordon assures had a previous conversation with him and told me about the platform and so forth. Or do we just have a one-time yearly fee for MAT per STR? At this point, I don't think I think there's around 20 STRs in our neighborhood that we know of, I guess. 78? Oh, okay, 78. Didn't read that one in the report. I'm going off of previous conversations. So 78. Well, that's good. That'll pay for Granicus, the platform. But I am interested to see what that public meeting does, what comes out of that for the stakeholders, and definitely like to make this Gravenhurst bylaw even lighter. Like you have floor plans in here, site plan that could get possibly costly if you're actually looking for a site plan document. Building code reports, I'm not sure if they can sign off on something, taking full responsibility and so forth. So I don't want to make this bigger than what it is. We just, for me, as I said, I just want to have some type of authority to go in and shut down a nuisance or a ghost landlord that rents out to anybody and doesn't respect the surrounding neighbors. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Well, I'm a little bewildered why we want to regulate short-term rentals, but not regulate taxi cabs. We made that decision at 12:10 one evening. Taxi cabs can regulate themselves. And here we are trying to fix something that isn't broken. How many verified complaints actually existed for short-term rentals is one of the questions. Councillor Meredith says we don't have a bylaw that addresses the short-term rentals. We have a noise bylaw. We have a parking bylaw. We have a garbage bylaw. We have a property standards bylaw. We have a fire safety bylaw. We have a building code compliance bylaw. The short-term rental properties aren't exempt to these bylaws. Why do we need another bylaw? You say, oh, it's just it'll just be operated by the software contract and it's only $10,000. Who's going to operate that contract? Oh, they'll come into budget. We need a new staff to supervise. We need another bylaw officer to make sure that the something that's working is still working, or I don't know. We're over regulating, and it's going to discourage tourism and investments. What else have I got here written? We received several emails from different operators, and they made some valid points. They're not opposed to being involved with mat collection. I mean, it would be better, and that would put them on the same playing field. If you impose a regulation bylaw, they are not on the same playing field. You're tying their hands. So it's not broken. Don't fix it. There's no widespread issue to resolve here. So why create a complex or a semi-complex system that introduces new costs, reduces participation, places a strain on a sector that contributes positively in the local economy? So I'd like to save the staff a lot of time and vote this motion down, and maybe come back forward on how we could implement just having our short-term rental well-established, very positive operators, have them tell us how they would like to contribute, and not us tell them how to run their business that's already successful. So I'm asking again, my fellow councillors, to please not support this regulation bylaw, but revisit it with a better proposal. Collect the mat tax for us, and thank you for running a very successful business that attracts tourists to our area, to our town.
Through the chair to Councillor McDonald, in respect to how many complaints we received, I would respectfully ask another question back to you. Are you looking for a certain time frame, or just within last 5 years? Just so I can give you an accurate number, because there is a bit of a difference.
Well, I suggest that you probably were expecting this question, so just share with us what you have.
So within the last 5 years, we have received 2 complaints, both being for the same property in the same area. Otherwise than that, in the last 2 years, I don't recall ever receiving a complaint related to any short-term rentals in the town.
Thank you. So that really doesn't give a strong need for a regulation bylaw.
Mayor Gordon and then Councillor Ball.
Well, thanks. I was just going to clarify that although, Councillor Meredith makes a valid point that we need to worry about the problems that not only have happened, but invariably will happen as the STRs are more popular. One of the solutions that some municipalities have adopted is simply to ban the ghost hotel. All hotel and motel, there's owners on site, or they have staff on site 24/7. So if we simply said, you know what, let's put a simple framework in that says easy to be owner occupied. Now we don't have to worry about the responsible person issue, and we can hold the owner of the residence responsible. Of course, then it's the game of, oh, well, I was just out last night when all this happened, but really they live in Mississauga because they own 5 of these things. There's what gets measured gets managed. The wild west of simply relying on the goodwill of a few business operators to voluntarily remit to Matt on, whatever they say, they rent it out, and then keep the rest, because human nature is there are people who will do that. You can't have a voluntary system of compliance. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any bylaws at all. Everyone would just ask them to be good. Why do we have a speed limit on the trail? Why do we have any regulatory signs in the town? So there is a million reasons why we have bylaws and rules and regulatory frameworks that go along with them. But the primary driver for this, why this conversation got started, was so that the MAT tax that we asked our hotel and motel operators to collect on our behalf can be also collected by our STR operators. That's the primary purpose. Everything else is kind of ancillary to it. So the alternative is we could just abandon the MAT tax and we can put all of that back on the backs of our ratepayers, or we can simply stop advertising and promoting our community because we don't want to put it on the backs of our ratepayers. Matt is the driving force behind this. Let me be absolutely crystal clear. That is what started this conversation. And that is what this is about. And I don't care how many people volunteer saying, I'll pay Matt. Honestly, no, but I'm just saying that without a framework, you can't compel people to do anything. So there has to be a framework. And I agree with Councilor Meredith. It can be the lightest of frameworks. We don't have to have a whole lot of onerous restrictions on this, but the platform that goes along with this negates the very fear you have, Councilor McDonald, about having to hire staff and this becomes some department in the town, which I disagree with. I wouldn't want that to happen either. Granicus does this work for us and countless other communities. They scrape and police all of the online platforms, and they look for STRs in the community that participates, that's paying them, and they look for that registration number as part of the listing. And if it's not there, you're not in compliance. And there's a process of getting warned and fined and all it, just regular stuff that goes along with this. So again, this is not a solution in search of a problem. Nobody's suggesting we have an out of control problem in our town with out of control STRs. This is about collecting Matt, leveling the playing field, honoring the promise that we all made to our hotel operators when we approved the Matt in the first place, that we would pursue a regulatory framework of some kind to get our loop in our STR and B&B operators. Now, if you didn't actually make that promise or you voted against Matt, I don't remember how that all went 3 years ago, then, forget what I'm saying. But for those of us who did, and clearly majority did, or it wouldn't have happened, those are the promises we made to the hotels. And I don't know about the rest of you, and I'm pretty confident that I know you well enough that you don't lie and you don't walk back your promises. This is closing the loop, tying the knot, putting the bow on it. This is exactly when this was supposed to come back to us. It's coming back to us with an abundance of clarity on a simplest, thinnest model possible that can be thinned out through the public consultation with the stakeholders, which are obviously the only people that are going to show up to this pick, are people that are financially invested in this. And I don't blame them for pushing back against wanting framework and more work to do and maybe more fees. And I don't blame them. It's a cost. We're talking about putting in another layer of complexity on their business. But let's remember, they're in business. This is a business. Most of us, or as many of us up here have run businesses or still do. And there's a cost to running a business. And this is just one of the things that needs to happen. It happens in countless other municipalities. Midland is not the first out of the gate. We're pretty late to the game, actually. And we're learning the lessons and taking the best practices from the ones that have done it. So my key here is that, this is not a solution in search of a problem. And this is not about the 2 complaints we had from that one operator on Riverwalk. I think is probably the one we're talking about here. When I knocked on doors 3 years ago, there's all kinds of STR places where the kind folks who answered said, "Hey man, you seem pretty cool, but I can't vote for you. I'm only here for a week or a month." And I knocked on the door that I already knocked on next door and said, "Did you guys know there's a Airbnb beside you?" And they had no idea. They had absolutely no idea, which shows you how responsible many of these operators are and how well run this little business is. So we're not trying to punish. This isn't coming down hard on them. This is just about having them help contribute to the very economy that's not on the taxpayers' back, that promotes stay and play tourism in our municipality, that directly benefits their business model. And if they're unwilling to do that, or they're only a few people are willing to put their hands up and volunteer, and now we have to police which ones didn't, or you said you would, but you haven't been. How come you only submitted 3 rentals for the whole summer? Can you show us your books? No, I don't have to show you my books. All of this is complicated if you don't have a registration format where people have actually something to lose by not playing fair and not agreeing or not following through on what they agreed to. So that's why you have a registry system. That's why Granicus exists. It's a very successful business model. It's dirt cheap. It's like $8,000 for the first year, 6 for the next. No staff involved. And that will get us exactly what we need. And if, like any other thing we pick and choose here, year 1 and year 2 are the experience years. Year 3, we found some bugs with it we need to fix. That council can fix those things, which could actually include gassing the whole program if it turns out to be a dog, that's way more work than it's worth. But we owe it to the hotel motel operators because we promised to do this. As a council, even if you personally didn't, council did. And we make decisions together as a council. That was the pledge that was made. And I don't plan on walking that back. And it would be very disappointing today if we didn't, because the only people that are complaining about this are the ones that are actually interested in it because it's going to cost them some money and some time and effort to participate, just like the hotels and all the other big businesses have to.
Was it Counselor Ball next? And then Counselor McDonald.
Thank you. You are correct. We are a council, so the majority does go through. Each person in this council has the reasons for voting for something, and that is not a blanket promise to hotel operators that we would investigate this. I, for one, didn't make that promise at all because I was against it for hotel operators. I was against it then. I haven't been for it at all. Haven't been for policing short-term rentals in any way. I think, in fact, we have quite a few vacant properties. I would like to see have short-term rentals go into them so that we can increase tourism, and I don't want to add any red tape towards that. So there are 9 people up here. We make our own voices, we make our own promises to people, but at the end of the day, we are one of 9 voices, and those promises are only happening if all 9 people agree, as far as I'm concerned. So I am not for this. I understand the reason to level the playing field because we have approved this otherwise as a council, but I didn't approve it then and I won't be approving it now.
Counselor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. There was something that I did not suggest. What was it you suggested? I said I was all set to.
Was it about getting rid of the mat entirely?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that was one because I saw the eyebrow. So
Yeah.
there.
Okay, so seriously consider why we have to regulate them. In 5 years, there was 2 complaints, and I remember that, the same household. In the last 2 years, no complaints. So it appears to me they are running very smoothly. I propose that we defeat the recommendations and come forward. I can make a note, and I don't know how I go about amending these recommendations, that we request staff to develop a framework for the short-term rentals to collect the MAT tax. That's our ultimate goal. We do not need all this other stuff. If that goal can be met by developing a framework, how they could collect it and let them run their successful business, continue to run it, continue to attract tourists, then I'd be happy. And maybe some of them won't be happy to collect the tax, but it doesn't make sense to put all this work, to do public consultation, to write all these reports when it's not needed. So, Madam Clerk, how would I proceed to put that motion forward? Do I just ask my federal councillors to defeat this and then put a motion, or do I put a motion forward first? Just my motion would be to develop a framework for staff to develop the framework for the short-term rentals to collect the MAT tax.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor McDonald. I believe when you say a framework, it is similar to what staff are suggesting in the bylaw, because that's what gives them the ability to monitor the short-term rentals, apply fines, but perhaps I'll defer it to either Mr. Farquharson or Mr. Kennedy I'm not exactly sure what you mean by develop a framework, so I'd need more clarification.
What I mean by developing a framework is how do they collect it and pay it? That's all we need. But there's also all other things in the bylaw that we don't need.
Yeah, through Deputy Mayor. So that's what staff provided this framework to council. If council wants to pare it down even further to only request those, that's fine. But there's certain things we need to have this, like, to basically license, have this fault framework in place so that way we can recognize which ones are STRs. So that way we can go through the process. So the idea is we provide this framework to council. You look at it, you give us what you want us to go out to the public with for consultation. And then we would then come back to council with the recommendations that came out of the public as well. Did I just confuse you more?
Just.
I know.
I guess I have to digest what is in front of me right now, but I guess I was suggesting that the how did you determine there was 78 short-term rental places? They're already identified.
Through you, Madam Chair, through Granicus. Through that online platform operator, they've got all the data there. They're the ones who did a search of our municipality, and they're the ones who came up with the data that showed how many we actually had.
So we're already using that platform?
No.
Well, can't we just continue to do that? Like it's not rocket science.
Through the chair to Councillor McDonald. So the information that we receive from Granicus, they typically do this for all municipalities that are interested in possibly joining their platform. They will run a cursory search of every website that they have. I believe they run searches through about 60 different rental platform websites, Expedia, Airbnb, VRBO, all of those major ones. And then they find the boundary line of said municipality, and then they will create a map, which you see in one of the attachments to the report, that shows that there's 78 unique properties that are listed on any given website for short-term rental opportunity. It also gives you a breakdown of what types of houses they are, whether it's a single family dwelling, whether it's an apartment building that it's being rented out in, and it's also providing a median of what the daily or nightly cost is for a stay per night as well. So that's all listed in that document that's attached to the report. So it's not that we are with Granicus by any means whatsoever. I reached out to them to gather this information and see what the cost would be. They have 5 or 6 different modules that we can go for, which I don't believe we need. In my opinion, we don't need that. I think this cost here is for the address identification, which I believe would be necessary for us to even be able to do enforcement. Because without that, it would essentially be a staff scavenger hunt, if you will, having to go around the entire municipality to try and find them. Otherwise, in the other platform or module that we've located is the 24/7 hotline, which is not necessary. It's just something that I thought council may be interested in for after hours issues, that people would be able to call this hotline and the responsible person is contacted directly through this hotline to go and deal with the issue. That's not entirely necessary, and that can cut costs each year if we don't want to go with that and just go with the address identification. But that's kind of the bare bones of where we've gotten that information from.
So the information is widespread. Like, it's not that difficult to find. ChatGPT or whatever, I'll give it to you as well. I really don't think we need to regulate them. I'm sure the bylaw just has to say, if you operate a long-term rental or short-term rental, I should say, the bylaw requires you to submit municipal accommodation tax. That's all we need. And then we're keeping our promise, keeping Mayor Gordon's promise. Thank you.
Councillor East and Councillor Ball.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. That was a lot to digest. Okay, so first things, all the conversations that I had with any short-term rental operators is that they have absolutely no problem paying the MAT tax. They actually see the benefit in it. Over and over again, we can see that I think council feels that maybe some of the analysis is a bit of an overreach. So I agree with what you're saying to simplify it. You do need to track it. There's no doubt about it. There's no way that we can collect mat tax without some sort of tracking system. So unfortunately, there will need to be something. I did want to address that though, that right now we're looking at today's 78 units. What's it going to look like in 10, 20 years? And if we don't get a hold of this now, we have no ability to really collect mat tax as this grows, and it's going to grow. There's no doubt about this. So I see the validity and the value of a really simple system. I'm looking at this. You don't need to have proper insurance. If you're going to be through Airbnb, you have to have insurance, fire safety inspections of building codes, bylaw compliance, site plans, septic. It has nothing to do with us. We don't need to reach into those. But what we do need to do is have an ability to track the Airbnbs as they come in and out. So I completely agree with this, and it has to move forward this way. Because if not, truthfully, our hotels and motels have jumped on. We've seen the gross benefits of the mat tax come back, and we can only build on this. So I think that any STI operator would be in support of a very minimal system that addresses their property. And I'm guessing that this program also shows when, you know, customers are coming in and out and leaving, then they have to submit the mat tax. I don't think that there's any way to do this truthfully without having some sort of program like you said, right? So that box that you've created, I agree with it. It has to be there. And don't fool yourself. This is going to grow. Airbnbs are everywhere. And the truth is that they're a huge driver of tourism. Not only that, but you have, you know, like doctors and nurses that are coming up to the area to figure out if they want to move up here. This gives them the ability to find out if this is where they want to stay. So these short-term rentals are really important, but yes, they do need some sort of tracking. So I commend you for that and seeing that. I just don't think that we need to have this huge overreach. It's really not needed, right? Simplify it, boom, we collect the money.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess that my question is, can we not just have it similar to a dog license? You self-identify your short-term rental, you then also pay the tax. If you do not, and we find out there you have one, then you are fined.
Through the chair, that's entirely possible to do if you just want to have a registration type of program that identifies that X property is a short-term rental, and then that puts them on the books. We would obviously have to keep track of those properties, and then they would remit max, but we could essentially mat tax, but we would eliminate all of the other requirements, the site plan, floor plans, all that stuff. We don't have to include those into the bylaws. Those are all optional, and that's up to council on what they wish to include in that.
Thank you, because if we're stating that the only reason why we're doing this is to collect that, then we are really overreaching with everything else we're requesting from these owners. And it's a cost for the municipality, it's a cost for these short-term rental owners. So I wasn't for it before, but if that's the promise that Mayor Gordon wants to keep about gaining the revenue, I would support that specific part of it of just registering, and there's a fine laid out if you don't.
So if I may, Deputy Mayor, my question goes back to the deputy clerk, or to the clerk, or maybe I'll ask the deputy clerk about how we would proceed with just having the bylaw as was just disguised or discussed, and not have to go through the public hearing and just make a bylaw that identifies the short-term rental that they have to collect mat tax. It's that simple.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost, through to Councillor McDonald. If I understand correctly, this report with the bylaw was presented at the request of council. It was something that you had requested that staff look into, which is what Mr. Kennedy has done with this report. As far as the framework, it's done through the bylaw. There is a draft bylaw attached, and if you the first recommendation is that council provides staff direction whether any additional options should be incorporated. I believe if you wanted some of the sections removed, we could do an amending motion to remove what's in the bylaw right now to have it council satisfaction, if you wanted to remove some of the requirements that were in there, we could do an amendment to that, which would then, that amending bylaw would be proposed with the public consultation, just to get comments from the public. And then it comes back to council again with the public comments, with the draft bylaw, which again, you would have the ability to support or not support the bylaw.
Mayor Gordon.
I'm gonna try and uncomplicate this because I know where you're trying to go with this. There's 16 options right now that are bullet points, but they're numbered. I do not anticipate, and I don't even support having all 16 of these as part of our bylaw. This is a lot smaller than the list could have been. Rob's already pared it down significantly, but here's 16 that he thinks that we might want to talk about. So what I suggest we do, unless you completely don't want this at all, in which case you vote against it, is let this go as it is, unadulterated. I would anticipate during the pick, there's probably going to be easels or signs or something much like our splash pad ones and other ones. And there's going to be little colored stickers, and all of these are going to be on their own section. And the people that choose to come to that pick are going to stick their stickers on the things they like. And they're either going to not stick it on the ones they don't like, or they're going to rank them. I don't know, however you staff decide to do this. But the results will come back to us with the things that were everyone mostly agreed on. They all think this is important. Most people agreed on this one. Everyone agreed on that one. Nobody wanted this one. And, 4 of the 20 people that showed up wanted this. You know what I'm going at? We get that back in the draft bylaw with a report saying these are the things that we heard from the stakeholders, which don't have to necessarily be operators. We're not going to card you at the door. It can be any schmo from Midland can walk into this thing and participate, including council. You put your stickers where you want, and that report comes back to us with here's what we heard. And of course, the expectation is that our B&B operators and our STR operators will all get a notification. I would argue if we can get access to the 76, we can't get the contact because we're not paying for it yet, right? Yeah. So then we go with the ones we know, we broadcast it through our channels, put an ad in the paper, blah, blah, blah. Get as many of them out as we can and have them identify which of these they can stomach and which ones they don't like. That's true consultation. Then we're not ramming it down anyone's throats. We're hearing from them. Unless they come back and they didn't put a sticker on anything, they just don't want anything. Well, okay, thanks for coming. Hope you had a good tea and whatever, and let's just move on. But I think that's the solution to this. So we don't have to overcomplicate and parse this list ourselves and remove things and add stuff. Let staff do what they do, run the pick. There's probably going to be an easel that has other, right? Because maybe there's things we haven't contemplated that the operators will suggest. What a great idea. And we're going to hear that, but we're not going to hear that if we don't pass this tonight and go to the next stage, which is getting the consultation. Nothing compels you then to vote for the final report that has the draft bylaw that, has responded to all the consultation. You can still go, oh, this sucks, I don't want it. No big deal. Then it maybe happens or it doesn't. Depends on how many hands go up. But at least then we'll have heard from all of the operators, not just the 2. There's only 2, honestly, that have been communicating with us. Well, so only 2 have communicated with me. So that's good news that they're engaged and talking. So if this passes now, use those emails, tell them to subscribe to whatever. Rob will give an email address or something so that they can get notified of when the pick's going to happen. And the pick's going to happen soon, right? Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? There's no reason to delay this. Let's get this information back before council, and then you can decide whether, based on what the community said, whether you like it. And if you do, awesome. Let's launch it and try it, knowing that it's a living document. It can be modified by future councils or completely removed, perhaps. Or it works really well. And we did a good job, and we listened to the stakeholders and we implemented something that they largely agree with. So my suggestion is not to get into the minutia here. Let staff do what they got to do. Put the questions to the stakeholders, which was our intention all along, and wait till we hear what we hear back. I've certainly heard from the ones who've chosen to contact me. They make compelling cases. They're really convicted in their beliefs. They're not all wrong in every case. And I want to see that reflected in this report rather than individual lobbying efforts. I want to see it come back to us en masse. So my ask is that we call the question, because I think we'd probably beat this to death, and that hopefully you approve this, and let's give the community and the stakeholders an opportunity to really give their voice where it matters at the pick.
Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you. Through the chair, just to clarify to council, the current requirements that are listed in the draft bylaw can be found in section 3.1. And all of the items that I have in the report for options are not in the current draft bylaw. The only thing that I'm hearing council may want to remove is the requirement for a site plan. That's quite a common thing that all short-term rental bylaws have, is a site plan, so that we can confirm exactly where everything is on the property. But other than that, it's more or less you have your application, proof of ownership, proof that the applicant's over 18. If the applicant's a corporation, they need to provide a corporate profile report so that it's proven that they're an actual corporation in Ontario. An agreement that the owner of the STRA will comply with the provisions of the municipal accommodation tax bylaw. A signed copy of the Renters Code of Conduct, again, quite a common thing in all bylaws. A site plan, and then the payment of any fees if necessary. So those are the only requirements at this point that's in the draft bylaw, which I find is quite relaxed compared to every other bylaw that I've seen. I just wanted to clarify that for council, so you were all aware of what's currently in the draft. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
What about the licensing and terms, conditions? That's in the bylaw. And that's what we don't, well, I'm speaking for me. We don't want to have to be regulating. Where's the regulations? The rest of them? Rest of the points? You're looking at me like.
Through the chair, I'll attempt to try and answer that. Everything else is more or less all the prohibitions. So if they don't get a license, or if they market illegally, or if they put something out on a website and they're not supposed to, that's where section 2 and all those subsections come into play. And we can certainly look at that if we tailor the requirements differently. There may be some differences in other sections. The licensing terms and conditions are simply, it's not transferable. It's from January 1st to December 31st each year. If they have any changes to any information, they're required to notify us within 3 days. So that's kind of where that is. I don't know if that's answered your question, Councillor McDonald, but
Sort of. I still think it's over regulating, and we're made to go out. Like, why can't we just say you're going to pay short-term tax in a bylaw and that's it? And make it's giving you guys a lot of work, but I guess we'll vote and find out whether this is the way you want to go. If we would have just come with a report saying, here is the bylaw that they have to participate in the municipal accommodation tax. And you're saying that's all this bylaw says. Okay, so if I'm sorry to kind of keep on this, but I want to be clear. So that's the first recommendation, that we incorporate the draft bylaw as outlined. That means we pass it and it's going. And then we're going to give you direction to go out there and do consultation. And then they'll come back and tell us. So if we're incorporating it, why would we have to do the consultation and come back? I don't think we should be incorporating it before we do the consultation. Unless you're absolutely sure that all that says is you'll collect MAC tax. I'm not for it.
Through the chair, historically, any municipality that's created a short-term rental licensing program has done public consultation. I do not know off the top of my head any municipality that has not done public consultation before they've implemented one of these types of bylaws. This is if you will, a relatively new type of regulation all across the world. So getting the input from the public, from the short-term rental owners, from the neighbors of those people, from visitors that would be coming to there, that is very, very beneficial for every municipality to have, so that council can make an informed decision.
Councillor Meredith.
Just to clarify, and then I'll just sit back and digest them more. And should be incorporated into the draft bylaw. council provide staff direction whether any additional options should be incorporated. So I guess I just wanted to direct staff to reduce the, yeah, as outlined in the attachment. Okay, finally sunk in. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost and Councillor McDonald. I'm not in favor of not having a public meeting because I've told the STR owners right now that there will be a public meeting for their input. So I think it's a bad idea to axe that. So I can't be in favor of that. In 2 of the bylaw, and I'm glad you pointed out that there's a lot of literature before the bylaw, which doesn't include in the bylaw, which is good to point out. In 2.2 section of the draft bylaw, you mention following shall be posted on the interior STRA premises visible to all guests and made available for inspection. So that, what type of inspection are we, because I don't see anything else in the bylaw about inspections. So in 2.2, it mentions inspection, which I think that's what Councillor McDonald and we want to get away from overreach and so forth. So just wondering what that pertains to.
Through the chair to Councillor Emeritus, this is the word inspection just means so that we can view it. Every owner would have to make those readily available for an officer upon request. So that's all that section is saying is they are required to post it, and if we ask for it, they need to produce it immediately. They can't just, oh, I don't have it right now, and kind of snowball into a bigger problem. So that's that section. That's what that's.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking of physical inspection of the property. That's how I interpreted it, and apologize for that. Okay. Yeah, and I think this is pretty straightforward. And when you have the public meeting, are you just going to present this draft bylaw to them, not all the information you gave us prior to? Is that going to be on display as well? Just don't want to cause confusion in the public meeting.
If through the chair, there's multiple options available to council. I've suggested, I believe, the public information session or center that we would hold at the Bourgeois Community Center, most likely in the Bill Thompson room. I've also provided an option to council to actually do a public meeting in front of council, so that anyone can come in front of council and voice their opinion directly to you. I find that's very beneficial. I've done that in my previous 2 municipalities as well, and I find that has been one of the best options available, because it makes the community feel heard, that they can talk directly to their councillors in an open session. So those are kind of the 2 options. We can certainly do both. I would suggest if it's going to be a public meeting of council, we're most likely looking at the fall time, just because we don't have meetings in the middle of the summer. But the PIC, I would assume, would probably be around the July area, somewhere in that range.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one other question I had about this Granicus, and I'm glad that you explained how you got the 78, because for some reason we had 20 on file. I remember that conversation, so I was going by that. Through Granicus, we discovered 78 in the area, so that just tells me the importance of this platform just right then and there. So when we sign up with Granicus, is it a 1-year contract? Is it a 2-year contract, or are we married to it for a number of years, or is there variations? Thank you.
Through the chair, there's options available there. We can do a 1-year contract, or we can do multi-year. They've described that. If I recall correctly, the individual I was talking to from Granicus did say if we signed on as a multi-year, the cost would be less, because we wouldn't be fronting the, I believe they said they would waive the implementation fees. So that would be a cost-saving measure. But again, the hotline isn't absolutely necessary. It's just something I wanted to describe to council so you were aware of what their modules are. The other modules, I don't believe that we are anywhere close to needing. We don't have, as we've talked about already, we don't have the complaints. We don't have that kind of stuff. So there's no need for that at this point. But the address identification would be what we would need to be able to effectively enforce this, because otherwise we would not be able to find these properties.
Thank you very much. I look forward to the public consultation, and again, if we don't like what's in front of us when we have to approve this, we can scrap it all. But to Councillor McDonald's concern, I think this is pretty light, and it does secure some funding for Matt as well. So yeah, I'm okay with what I've heard today, and good conversations as well. Thank you.
Through Madam Chair, just one additional comment that Councillor Meredith had earlier was about the site plan. So we're not expecting them to go and get professional plans done. It can be done by the homeowner. Typically, what we would encourage, kind of like a building permit when they come for zoning, when they purchase their property, sometimes they have a survey that was included. They can photocopy that and draw on there if they need it to show this is where the parking is going to be. So we're not, they want to do that. They want to go through that expense. They can do that on their own, but we're not looking to have them, incur significant costs like that. They can do the drawing themselves. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, because I know those are costly, the professional ones. So thank you for the clarification.
Okay, council, you've heard the motion and we've had discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried 7-2. I am going to call a bio break, but before I do, I want to point something out. Maybe just a reminder. One of the first things that I really learned on council my first term was, regardless of how we vote, whether it's defeated or carried, it's council has now spoken. And that's where it stands. Sometimes I'm feeling tension up here, and it's not good. We're still a council together, bringing our own, but once council has spoken, like I said, either carried or defeated, that stands as a council. I just wanted to say that because I think we've been a good council and I'd like it to continue. I don't like that tension that I feel sometimes, and I don't think anybody else does either. So I'm going to call a bio break. We'll be back in 10. Welcome back. We just had a 10-minute bio break. So we're moving on to 17.3, CSR-2026-060, Ontario's Best Butter Tart Festival sidewalk usage by businesses. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put this on the floor? Councillor East and Councillor Major. That staff report CSR-2026-060, Ontario's Best Butter Tart Festival sidewalk usage by businesses dated May 20th, 2026 be received, and that council authorize businesses registered under the town's patio program as the date of this report to place tables and chairs on the municipal sidewalk on a one-time basis during the Ontario's Best Butter Tart Festival on June 13th, 2026 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., subject to the terms and conditions set out in the staff report. Do we have any comments or questions on this report? Councillor East.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Right, so I fully support this, even though I understand the problems that arose that our fire chief brought forward, just so that we're aware. But at the same time, I see the validity and the safety of this. The one thing that I hear back from a lot of the patrons the Butter Tart Festival is that they get really hot. There's nowhere to sit. So I would actually love to see if there's a way to approve not only the tables and the chairs, but umbrellas. Looking at it as a safety view, getting them out of the sun, even for a couple of minutes, is huge, because a lot of these are elderly people that come from everywhere. And the one thing that I constantly hear about with it being downtown is that there's no trees, they get overheated. So I think this is a great opportunity to provide another level of safety for the patrons.
Mr. Kennedy?
Through the chair to Councillor East, if council wishes to also allow for the umbrellas, then by all means, we can certainly incorporate that. As I've noted in the report, this would only be subject to one business on King Street at this point. So if they wish to put an umbrella in the middle of the table to provide some shades, then we can certainly review that upon an application and figure it out.
Any more questions or comments? Councillor Meredith?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Thank you for the coming back to staff coming back to us with this analysis and report. The one thing I did read in the analysis, which are the actual last paragraph has me a little bit concerned. The positioning and location of the tables and chairs will also be considered. Staff are in the opinion that a chair should not be located in a manner that would impact the pedestrian circulation of the circulation of the sidewalk. Staff recommend each business that wishes to have tables and chairs that they be positioned against the building facade with a maximum of 2 chairs placed at any table. So the confusion that I have in here and what I'm envisioning, which is the normal Butter Tart Festival layout, is we have retail tents and tables on the sidewalks. And we have the patios in front of the restaurants, but we're limiting them to have the seats basically against the facade and only in 2 seats and we per table, and we still want room on the sidewalk for pedestrian access. So what I'm envisioning and what I thought that staff were trying to do were to clear the parking areas as the main to keep that open for pedestrian corridors. And you'll have some pinch points with the planters and so forth. So if we have tents and tables on the sidewalk, but we're only limiting the tables and chairs against the building, I just don't understand. Are we trying to create a corridor on the sidewalks as well? So all the retailers, the tents and tables that they put out in front of their businesses, they will have to allow some space? Or my impression was the sidewalk was, you could come out to your to the edge of the sidewalk where the boulders are going to be, and that space is for retailers, and the parking areas are where the pedestrians walk and the part of the road, and in the middle of the middle of King Street would be where all the vendors are. So I'm a little confused on this, and I just maybe some clarification on it. Thank you.
So through the chair to Councillor Meredith, half right, yes. For the sidewalk portion, we're trying to mitigate the blockages on the sidewalk. We're trying to aim to have the sidewalks clear as much as possible. Unfortunately, last year there were some select businesses that went way overboard with their occupation of the sidewalk and caused not like major pinch points where a lot of people were getting quite upset having to kind of shoulder to shoulder go through everybody. So the sidewalks, we're trying to mitigate the blockages on the sidewalks as much as possible. So that's why we're suggesting 1 to 2 tables. In hindsight, looking at it, we are allowing 10 by 10 tents up in front of the businesses. I'm typically only seeing 1. Some other businesses have asked for 2. But typically on site sketches, I'm seeing 1 10 by 10 tent with maybe 1 or 2 tables, possibly 3. So if the tables and chairs at this select business were to go out and they don't go farther than 10 feet out, similar to what a tent is, I don't see why we would say no to that. But we're trying to mitigate the blockages on the sidewalk as much as possible to keep that clear lane as well. Because we have the vendors in the middle of King Street, then we have the parking spaces, which also have the bullards and whatnot, a bunch of blockages with the planters. And then we do have a bona fide clear sidewalk on either side that should be kept open from an emergency standpoint. So if we do, unfortunately, God forbid, have a mass casualty event at one of these types of events, then emergency services would be able to at least have a clear path going down the sidewalks or through the middle of the street on either side of the vendors.
Okay, thank you. So how are we gonna, how are we going to get that information out to, because things are changing now, right? Butter tart used to be just go out there and put your, your goods that you sell out front, with limitations. Obviously, we don't want to, like you suggest, a couple businesses went with 4 tents and so forth. That I could understand. So how are we going to police this, or are we going to business and I know the BIA has a part in this, and they will, educate them on what's allowed. So, but whether it's the BI or the town have to come up with one plan so everybody gets the same message, whether it's because I did receive an email from a business up by Dino's, and they were putting 3 tables out, and then there was an email going back there, well, you're only allowed 2, or so there's mixed, how that layout's going to be. So is that carved in stone? Are you going to look at it and have some flexibility? Am I going to get a lot of phone calls? I mean, these are the kind of things that, and I'm sure CEO Bunn doesn't want to hear from me again for a while. So I'm just trying to, let's work together with what's going on, and possibly, I know the Chief Renault's here today, and he's responsible for safety as well. So, and come up with a plan of attack where, in the future butter tarts that we have, everybody's on the same page, because we want to mitigate risk, and I get that. But when we're hosting 50 to 60,000 people, we will do the best we can, and so communicating that to the businesses would be helpful. And I'm not sure if we have a plan for that.
And so through the chair to Councillor Meredith, we did, through the tourism team, email the BIA some examples of what we're looking for. And as far as I'm aware, the BIA did send that out to the members of hey, we need the application, we need your insurance with the town as an additional insured, and we need the site sketch, which is a new requirement this year. So I've had to follow up with some businesses to supply that site sketch to review. It is a bit difficult to give the same privileges to every single business downtown, simply because there's different sizes of frontages for each business. So for example, you have Let's Be Frank, which is very, very small compared to Royalty, who has, probably 10 times more frontage than what Let's Be Frank has, just based on this, on the storefront. So it's a bit difficult to say Steadfast, we're only allowing 1 to 2 tables or 1 tent. It's more going to be on a case by case basis. So it's a little bit difficult to communicate that as kind of, hey, here's the limitations. It's again going to be reviewed on a case by case basis depending on who actually applies. And then we will work together with those businesses to come to a resolution to make sure that blockage on the sidewalk isn't bad. And further to that, the 4 businesses that were offside last year, we have personally gone and spoken to every single business that was offside last year to describe that, hey, these are the requirements that we need you guys to comply with this year. If you don't, then we would have to take enforcement action on that.
Okay, great, thank you. So you're going to be reviewing every application that comes in and their diagram and so forth. And if there's a problem with it, then you'll reach out to them. And I'm sure they'll have, I think you've already done that with one storefront that what I messaged, and then they emailed the BIA, they emailed myself for, this 2 table thing. So I'm not sure what happened there, but hopefully that'll get straightened out, and so forth. So those are my area of concerns of that language that's in here. So as long as we're flexible, I'm okay. Thank you.
Counselor Ball, then Counselor Patel.
Thank you. I appreciate the compromise coming back. This is all I wanted last time when I was trying to discuss this moving forward, is that I want businesses to be able to use their patios. This is a perfect compromise of that. So I appreciate you coming back with it, and my fellow counselors choosing to bring this up again. So I appreciate the compromise, and that's the end goal I had, is letting businesses use their patios. So I appreciate that.
Counselor Patel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to Mr. Kennedy coming back so quickly, working with the businesses to make sure safety and, businesses can continue operating as well. What I'm observing based on what's transpiring here is there were few businesses, or maybe more than few, that overreached their limits, and in the end, the restaurants were perceived as the impeding, I guess, or traffic movement. They were impeding. So what I'm gathering is, this is just my personal opinion, is, to prevent things like this from happening, the patios moving forward in future should be allowed to stay where they are. But if any businesses downtown want to take part, they should be coming onto the street level and applying the vendor permit. Yeah, they can probably maybe get a discount, whatever, but I think that would solve a lot of problems where the sidewalk would stay clear, and businesses downtown that want to take part of the butter tart, well, let's come on the street. And I think that would put safety probably at a higher standpoint if we had better flow in the sidewalk and we didn't have any pinch points, because it's just not the tables, but also there's some stores that sell clothes, and then they bring the racks in, and that creates a big stalling point, from what I feel, that for traffic movement, because when you have these trees of clothes, they're not just 4 feet wide, they're almost like 6 feet or 7 feet wide. So they do take up a lot of the sidewalk. So maybe we can study this a little bit further and, talk to the BIA, work with the BIA, and see what their thought is, that moving forward, that they want to take part, come onto the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is something that we are currently looking at. The Manager of Culture and Tourism, it will be preparing a report back to council on butter tart. So we'll be looking at various options and how we can engage with the businesses in the downtown. So it's going to give us the summer to have that discussion with the BIA, get their feedback on trying to engage the local businesses and trying to have them included as part of the butter tart festival, whether it's out on the street and having a spot right next to a butter tart vendor. But that is something that staff are proactively looking at, and we're going to come back to council with a report in the fall on that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great that you guys are proactively thinking. So that's amazing. Yeah, so we want to make sure it's a successful event for everyone, for the town, for the people, the businesses. So it's a very good move. Thank you.
Counselor Major.
So basically, with all the vendors down the main street, it's just like a winter's day in Midland. So, and having Chapman's at Elizabeth and King last year was the best place for Chapman's because they had the longest lines. And I don't think I even bothered going on the sidewalk, and I was handing out all the stuff from tourism that if you scan it, you win a prize. But I didn't hit the sidewalk the whole morning I was down there. It was just faster being out in the street. But we got the biggest one is to keep Chapman's where they were last year, because that's the longest line of the whole butter tart festival. And it was right at Elizabeth and King, but they were up Elizabeth just a little bit towards Midland Avenue. So that way their line came right down to the main street. But other than that, I didn't have any problems, but I don't think I even bothered going on the sidewalk. I made better time just walking down beside either side of the main street of the vendors in the middle.
Counselor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost, and thank you, Mr. Parkerson, for your last statement and comments about coming back to the BIA and with Ms. Mealing going to create a report. Now, is that report going to be prior to meeting with the BIA, getting information from the BIA and the shopkeepers downtown, or is she going to make up a report then reviewed by the BIA?
Through Madam Chair, we're going to meet with the BIA first, and then we'll come back to council. Give us the whole summer to meet with them and get their feedback, and we'll come back in September with a report.
Okay, so basically, on that, with the BIA, you're going to basically culture and tourism going to say, this is what we're thinking. What do you think of this plan? And so forth, and give us your opinions and your feedback. Okay.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair, just as well, what do they want to see? Like what's the best way of activating the businesses in the downtown to try and get them engaged in the butter tart? Like we're gonna be looking for them to give the feedback to us, but then we're gonna propose our suggestions to them as well. So good dialogue between the two.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions or comments? Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. Just quickly. So the outcome of this, we're going to want to communicate this change that is potentially going to happen when we call the question. It's happening this year. This change we're contemplating right now, we're going to want to get that to the BIA board like ASAP so they can fan it out to their membership and explain who's impacted, what changes they need to make, satisfy concerns that the site plan, much like the STR site plan, is not a professional site plan. It's like a paper where you draw, this is my sidewalk, this is where my umbrella is going to be. Just a basic site plan, just maybe even show them a sample of here's what you need. We went through this last year with the patio program, as I recall. It got really confusing for a couple of people. But get this out to the BIA ASAP, so even prior to a board meeting, they can circulate this to their membership.
Through the chair, just to clarify, this report will only directly affect one business. And I'm in constant contact with them. They're well aware of what's going on today. So I don't foresee any issues. We've had about, bear with me, stand by. So far, we've had 13 businesses apply to be on the sidewalk for the Butter Tart Festival. I anticipate we're going to get more. But for this specific report, this is only specific for one business as it's directly related to the patio program. So everybody else just falls under the regular municipal property usage bylaw that was just passed a couple of months ago. And everybody in the BIA has, as far as I'm aware, has been made aware of what the requirements are for this year.
Okay, so then in talking with one of the people that's a member of the BIA, to say it's frankly speaking, they don't know that. So we need to make sure maybe our BIA rep can make sure that whatever changes are going to impact them and their ability to participate on the sidewalk this year, if it was communicated previously, I don't think he knows. So I think it's important we get out to him unless he's on your list. He's on your list.
Yeah, through the chair, he actually applied 3 hours ago. So we're all set with that.
That's good, because he pinged me while I was getting my coffee. So this is all fresh, and I'm like, we're actually talking about this as soon as I finish this break. So anyway, that's good. I'll let him know when our meeting's done to reach out to you, or maybe you'll reach out proactively to all these people and tell them what's up.
Yeah, through the chair, the owner's placed a phone call with me. I have yet to call him back because I've been in this room, but I will be calling him back tomorrow to clarify it. I believe there is some confusion on what the requirement is around the site sketch. So I will be clarifying with them tomorrow morning. So.
Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. And that clears up. Yeah, he called me as well while I was here. I couldn't, frankly speaking. Yeah. And also, I got a message that Zanka will probably be applying for patio as well. So, yeah. So those were the two businesses that we are anticipated that would be affected from that other bylaw that we. Thank you.
Okay, oh, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Just for clarification, there was conversation with Councillor East about allowing umbrellas. And if council, you could do a friendly amendment. And I've prepared a new motion that says to place tables and chairs and umbrellas on the municipal sidewalk. So if council is in agreement with that, we can present the amendment. Or if not, then we can just leave the motion as is and there's no umbrellas.
Okay,
I just wasn't sure on the direction, that's all.
all right, so I'm just going to hear from Councillor Patel and then I will decide.
So I think the way I understood Councillor East is umbrellas only for the restaurants, not the other people. Is that correct?
Truthfully, the umbrellas for anybody is the only thing that's saving, or anybody that's downtown. The repeated thing that I'm getting back, the feedback is that it's too hot. So definitely restaurants for sure, they're a lifesaver for especially the elderly and the young. The tents are great, but truthfully, any opportunity that we have that we can set up some sort of tent. I mean, even the town of Midland should be clearing a whole parking lot with picnic tables and tables or umbrellas so that they have somewhere to go, because it's a much needed thing for safety and health. But whatever you feel is best, Sherry.
Follow up from Councillor Patel.
Just to elaborate on your point, I think if we start making this bigger than what it is, it's going to create more hurdles. I believe there's plenty of shade in Midland. You know, I mean, if you go around the library area, like the church, there's plenty of shades. I believe there's lots of businesses employing the tents. You know, so I think if we want to allow umbrellas, they should be where the park area is, where I don't know the name of the park. Sorry, I forgot. Is it the park up top there by the boathouse? And yeah, so but I think to have it on Main Street, the tables are going to come out more and more onto the sidewalk. I just wanted to add that part. Thank you.
Okay, one more from Councillor East, and then I'd like to hear from staff.
Just to follow up, the umbrellas are just going in the middle of the tables. The tables are already the same circumference. The umbrellas, while you're having a cold drink at Mega Mindful, will save so many people and get them out. You will see people use those as much as possible, especially the elderly. All right. So for me, particularly, at least the restaurants that have applied, I would love to approve umbrellas for the use of those guys at least. Okay. It's really important.
Madam Clerk, do you have a motion to make a friendly amendment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. I could have the motion read to place tables with umbrellas and chairs so that it's not a solo standing umbrella, that you want the umbrella on the table.
Okay, we'll start with Councillor McDonald and work our way around again.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. I wasn't going to speak, but here I am. There's a shady side of the street, and I don't think you can force people. If I have tables and chairs, yay, I can put them out. Oh, it has to be an umbrella too. It just doesn't make sense. It might be a cloudy day. There's lots of shades. So I guess my question is to Councillor East. Thank you, Councillor Sheldon. I was going to say, are you wanting them to be mandatory that the tables? Oh, okay. But why even mention it? They'll figure it out. That's correct. If you don't have them, if it says in the bylaw that I need tables and umbrellas, I'm going to say, well, my table doesn't have an umbrella, so I guess can't put it out.
Counselor Meredith.
Thank you. I don't think there's a bylaw saying you can't have umbrellas on the main street. So I wouldn't even assume that any restaurant or any person could have a table chair with an umbrella over it. There's nothing saying that they can or can't. So does it even need to be in here? I think we're overlooking this.
Mr. Kennedy, can you confirm that, please?
There we go. I'll start again. Through the chair to Councillor Meredith, you are right. There is no bylaw that prohibits umbrellas. This can essentially, like, as I was saying before, can just be on a case-by-case basis. If they want to have one, I do not see an issue with them having an umbrella put in the middle of a table. That is not an issue for me.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. I think with the discussion that the motion is good as it stands.
Okay, Council. You have heard the motion. We've had the discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, 17.4. CSR 2026 056 temporary use bylaw recommendation, file number ZBA 01 26 475 Bayshore Drive, 527 Len South Boulevard, and 165 and 200 King Street. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please, to put this on the floor? There's somebody different, maybe? All right, Councillor McDonald and Councillor Major. That staff report CSR 2026 56 temporary use bylaws recommendation, file number ZBA 01 26 for 475 Bayshore Drive, 527 Len South Boulevard, and 165 and 200 King Street, dated May 20th, 2026, be received, and that the temporary use bylaw for 475 Bayshore Drive, 527 Len South Boulevard, 165 and 200 King Street be approved for a period of 3 years. That the implementing bylaws as shown in attachment number 3, number 4, and number 5 be passed and enacted. Council, you've heard the motion. Comments or questions? Councillor McDonald and then Mayor Gordon.
Thank you. To me, the way it reads, it sounds, I know it's a temporary use, but it's the way it reads, I can park my trailer there for 3 years. Be approved for a period of 3 years. The bylaws approved for the period of 3 years. That's just, I don't know, it's not clear that it's for special events only and you have to get a licensing permit. I haven't been reading any of the bylaws clearly, so I'm 100% wrong.
Temporary use with the attachments, does it not clarify what it's for? I'm asking staff.
Through you, Madam Chair. So in the bylaw, it does specify under definitions. So overnight vendor accommodations. So shall mean an area of land providing the temporary storage of vehicles and trailers with or without overnight accommodations for vendors participating in special events approved by the town of Midland. So that's where we would capture it, that you can't leave it there all year round. It has to be in association with the special events that's approved by the town. Through you, Madam Chair. The reason why there's 3 different bylaws for the different properties, because if council finds that they don't want to allow for one to going for 3 years, they can repeal that bylaw. So, but that one section, so just in the first bylaw there, it is under section 3 under definitions, and then in the shall mean an area, so right at the bottom of that, the last sentence.
Mayor Gordon.
Thanks. The last time we talked about this, we had a member of public speak about it, and Mr. Farquharson, I thought you did a decent job of explaining and clearing up some ambiguity or maybe a misunderstanding what this was about. But there was more that I think needed to be said, and because it was a public meeting and we're like in listening mode, I didn't want to come in and say it, but I'm going to say it again now in case this member of the public is listening or reads the follow-up in the news or whatever. This is not turning parts of our town into campgrounds. This is literally, for now, 3 events and 1 day, because we don't have these multi-day events. So it's literally 3 days out of the year that we're simply making an allowance for the vendors who have a demonstrable need to have a camp site or, have a camper or trailer near their whatever it is, merry-go-round or their fryers or whatever it is. They have a real need to be there. This allows them to do it legally for 1 day or 1 night, technically, right? If we get more events in town, that might end up being 4 or 5, right? It's not a bad problem to have. We got more overnight events, but it's not licensed for all the carnies and everybody who travels in these traveling road shows. It doesn't mean everyone's moving in and it's a big free for all. And I think that was the fear, which is legitimate fear. If in fact that was true, I would be like not supporting that either, because that's not our intent to turn our parking lots into these free-for-alls. So staff will work on a per request basis and only allow the right number of people with their vehicles to stay overnight at these specific locations for a validated purpose. Everybody else is just there to be a hand, to help assemble and disassemble or slog beer or whatever they do. They're going to be in their camper legitimately someplace where they're allowed to, if they travel in campers, which a lot of them do, because this is how they move around the province, or they'll be at a hotel. So this is not going to be, Smith's Camp version 2.0 in all of our parking lots. And it felt like that's how she was misinterpreting the spirit of what we're trying to do here. And since then, I've had conversations trying to quell those fears too. So maybe in hindsight, if I didn't really understand, or I didn't think you were nailing it totally with her, maybe I should have jumped in just to make sure, because it kind of got away from us and there was a lot of confusion. So no big deal. The subject matter intimately. I knew what you were talking about, but I don't think it was picked up by that one person and the folks that, that since then kind of caught on to that same thread that is actually wrong. That's not the intent of this. So this is really simple. I fully support it. We have to, again, to our, sometimes you have to have bylaws, because you can't just have no bylaws in the honor system. This makes sense to put into play. It does expire in 3 years. So if it turns out to be a wildly unpopular or, it's just a dumpster fire, nothing requires us to keep it for 3 years. We can gas it in after 1 year or make the necessary changes to make it more successful. So this became a bit of a tempest in a teapot. I didn't even think this thing would be pulled again. Now that we know this, but if there is anybody who has any, misunderstanding about what the intention is about this, now is the time to ask and clear it up, because hopefully we approve this and it makes things a lot easier for the talent that comes into our community to help run these amazing events that do travel around primarily with these campers. And there is an expectation that they need to keep their product safe or their exhibit safe or whatever it is that they're having to stay there overnight and tend.
Well, council, you've heard the motion. Is your hand up, Councillor Meredith?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. So the bylaw, at first I was against this. I pulled the report. I know you consulted with Aurelia. I'm bound to change my mind here. The only thing I do not agree with is we should be charging an additional fee for them to stay on our grounds overnight. I think you in the fees you did mention that they pay $300 around there for such a large events, but I don't think you're considering charging for overnight stays for Ribfest and other events. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Emeritus. No, for my department, we charge the special event application fee. We don't manage the parks. If there were to be a fee, I would suggest it might come from the operations department. But we don't charge events to be there overnight or to leave their infrastructure overnight for multi-day events such as Ribfest or Poutine Feast.
Okay, so instead of, thank you for that. So instead of going to another department, couldn't there be on the application for a box that you check saying we want overnight staff to stay in and then there's an additional fee? So, or should I be talking to somebody else about fees here?
Through you, Madam Chair, I mean, that is an option if council wishes to include that. We would need to update our fees bylaw to include that additional charge. So we would have to come back if we were to incorporate that change, come back to council in June, the next meeting in June. So, yep, that's not, if that's the will of council to have an additional charge, then we would then, Ms. Mealing would have to indicate that on her application that there is an additional charge, yes.
Okay, thank you. But in our last council meeting, where this came up,
yeah,
we specifically said, council specifically voted on having an overnight fee and specifically a certain number of people. So I was expecting that in this report, but what I did find out that, you know, you consulted Aurelia and they don't charge. So I assume we're following their model, but we're not Aurelia, we're Midland. This council said charge for a fee or make a fee for that overnight stay. And now we're going to come back in June to do it. So that's kind of why I pulled this report. I wasn't in favor of it because we directly asked for a fee in the for these events. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, sorry, my recollection was that for us to investigate if a fee should be charged. So that's why we didn't come back with a fee. We did the research, we talked to Aurelia, but if council wants us to apply a charge, and we can do that. So I apologize if I didn't interpret that correctly from council last meeting.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I guess I won't approve this because there's not a fee in there, or it's unless we make, or do I approve it? And or does this come back to council next this report comes back to the council in June?
Through you, Madam Chair, this is like any other planning rezoning. If council denies the application, it fails. Council could always defer it. However, we're trying to keep our timing in line because we do have the festivals coming. So, but if there's a fee that we're wanting to put in, council could approve the application in principle. There's still a 20-day appeal period anyways as well for this temporary use. And then when it comes to June, we'll have a report with an update with a fee to include, and then council can then update that fee bylaw, and then kind of everything wraps all together at once in June.
Okay, thank you. Or I guess I can make an amendment to this, but I wouldn't know
You
what
could, yeah.
what fee to charge. I would need some direction from staff to possibly, or I mean, I can make my own fee up. No, we could do $2,000. No, but I can make an amendment to the.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Perhaps if council is considering a fee, then staff could come back with a report for June 3rd, because that would still be before the Butter Tart Festival. And then have the amendment or include the fee with an amendment to the fees and charges for the June 3rd meeting. Or council could amend this motion to direct staff to set a fee for an overnight stay, and that the fees and charges bylaw be updated at the next meeting.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we, thank you. Can we just do 1 year, bring this back to council the following year? And then we could leave it status quo, no fees this year. Let's change a 3-year amendment to a 1 year, bring it back to council. And then if the new council wishes to put a fee on it, and see how it goes for this year. If staff are still in favor of this overnight stay, depending on how it goes, does that just do amendment from 3 years to 1 year?
So three, Madam Chair. So we'll go from a temporary use bylaw from 3 to 1 year, and then before it lapses, we will need to do an extension, which you can do. Council can keep extending the temporary use bylaws many times, so they could extend for 3 years the next time around. So you're wanting to have that no fee this year, and then us reevaluate it over the course. Okay, yeah, I understand. Staff are okay with that.
I think that's simpler. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. So I had the same concern as Councillor Emeritus, that $300 was really not, I guess, from the events side, they're getting a huge discount on using town's property, saving significant amount of money by not using hotels. I understand they need their trailers and it makes things easier on their logistic parts, but $300 is basically free. Just to give one specific event, the Rib Fest, they used to not charge for entering the event during the day. They used to not charge entering the event at night, but now they're starting to charge for entering during the day. And now they're charging a fee. I mean, they started that a couple of years ago for entering at night, and those fees are going up. So it's not like they're a money losing business. If they were in that situation, I don't think they would come to Midland. I mean, that's not how business works. You do it for a year, you lose, and you don't come back, especially an event like this. So for them to get a significant amount of discount for using town's property and the money they're saving, even though if we weren't, if we're going to charge a fee, they would still be saving a lot of money. And they are charging entry fee. So for $300, I think it's not a good situation on our part, being responsible for letting them use our town property. Thank you.
Councillor Major.
So the part I don't understand is if they got to be by their smokers for Rib Fest, then why are we giving parking at the Bourgeois Community Center? Like that parking lot means nothing to any event that I can tell.
Through the chair to Councillor Major, what they're leaving at the BCC is some of their trailers that no one's staying in. It's just their infrastructure to move some of the equipment to the event. Once they set it up at Harborside Park, then they'll bring it up to the BCC, park it there for the weekend, and then collect it on Sunday night when they pack up.
Okay, I thought some of them were staying up there, so they have no reason to be up there overnight.
No, there'll be no staff from associated with the event staying at the BCC parking lot.
Councillor East.
You, Deputy Mayor, just a question, a follow-up from Jazz's comment. Does the town make the money off of the administration fees to go into RibFest, or does RibFest make the money and the decisions on that?
Through the chair to Councillor East, that is RibFest's decision. They charge the admission. Any event that's third party that chooses to have an event admission is the money that they collect for themselves. They started to do this post-pandemic when they found that some of their expenses had increased.
Madam Clerk, are we amending this at all? Or do we have to have another one?
If council would like to amend the motion to 1 year, then I would suggest a friendly amendment to 1 year. And if the majority agree to it, we can change the motion to 1 year.
All right, if you agree, change the motion to 1 year instead of 3? Okay, that's what we'll do. Okay. Okay, I have now changed that section, approved for a period of 1 year. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we're on to number 18, notices of motion. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I don't have it written down, but I would like to give a notice of motion that administration be requested to develop a process in selecting and declaring a flower for the town of Midland.
Councillor Ball.
Sorry, Sherry, I'll write this out for you later. I would like to put a notice of motion in to change the speed limit on Marina Park Avenue, going into Peterson Park. It's currently a 50, which is quite high for that road, and people are going 50. That's a really well-used park. There's a lot of boat traffic going in and out of there, and 50 is quite high. And I've unfortunately seen a lot of people speeding there, and we weren't able to give them the crosswalk they wanted, but I would like to at least reduce the speed to a park entrance speed, which it should be.
Any other notices of motion? Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. Just for clarification, I will do some investigating to make sure that this hasn't already been brought forward to council. For some reason, I thought it had, and it was defeated. So I'll do some research and just to make sure that it's not a motion to reconsider.
The crosswalk I brought forward because of the speed, but we didn't touch on the speed, just in conversation.
Do we have any other notices of motion? Okay, I have one. I think about it all the time and I never say it. I'd like to bring back the national anthem before we start our meetings. So I'll give you that, Madam Clerk. So if we have no further notices of motion, we're on to 19, general announcements, and I'm sure we have lots of those. Mayor Gordon.
I would like to pay honor tonight, or this afternoon. I got to get over the tonight thing. Really a life that has been defined by innovation, generosity, and community leadership, and is being remembered all across Simcoe County and in Midland specifically. And that being the passing of our renowned local businessman and philanthropist, Reinhard Weber. Over the past 27 years, his foundation has contributed more than $50 million to charities and community initiatives throughout the region, including but certainly not limited to the building of our Midland Cultural Center and then donating it to the town, 2 transitional housing buildings with shelter now, with another one in the planning stages as we speak. Significant support, like in the tens of millions, to our hospitals and countless other arts, culture, and nonprofits in North Simcoe. On behalf of the town of Midland, I'd like to express my sincere condolences to his family and our enduring thanks for all the work that he and his team have done over the community over the many decades in Midland. A celebration of life for him has yet to be announced, but keep an eye. Our local news, I'm sure, will have that coverage. He was over in Germany when he passed, so there's some arrangements need to be made. Secondly, on the Provincial Day of Action, which is May 12th. Sometimes Provincial Day of Action falls a little shy of Earth Day. People really focus on Earth Day, but at the municipality here, we like to do some of our park cleanup on the Provincial Day of Action, and we're encouraged to do that by the province. That happened on May 12th. Town staff, I think Councillor Patel as well, were set up at Little Lake Park, Pete Pedersen Park, and Midland Bay Landing, and collecting litter. And it was wonderful. I wish I had a picture to share online of all the bags, but suffice to say, there was litter. However, I also need to shout out that it's certainly not just a town initiative. Our own disc golf club, the 60s and Heiser, they routinely collect garbage through Little Lake Park as they play disc golf and are super stewards of Little Lake Park. And again, though, I've got to call out the little doggy bags, the poop bags. God bless you for bagging your dog's excrement, but then chucking the bag into the bush is not helping. All right. So for heaven's sake, use one of the many garbage cans when you're down there. And we will make sure at the dog park and the new dog park, the second one that's getting added on, we'll make sure there's adequate refuse bins for that. But these bags tend to be discarded in the weirdest places. But anyway, it would almost be better not to bag it because it would go away faster. But anyway, I'm not suggesting leave your poop. But for those of you that are taking step one, bagging it, just take step two and get it into a garbage can or bring it home, for heaven's sake. So next one is our Public Works Palooza. It's part of the celebration that we do each year, celebrating our public works teams, and municipalities do this all over Ontario. May 23rd, so this Saturday, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Bourgeois Community Center parking lot. It's always a hit for families. There's barbecue, food, all of the big trucks, the little trucks. The police are there, ambulance. It is a lot of fun, and it's rain or shine. So, and it's also your time for those folks that think that they are snow clearing engineers. It is the perfect time to go and talk to a real human that actually does the job and say, why do you do it this way? Or why don't you do it that way? And you could probably get an answer rather from a politician. Talk to the real folks that actually are out there in the crappy weather in the middle of the night that do the job, because I know was a lot of questions on, year two of two significant winters about the timing and the why we do this and why we don't do that. And this is the perfect opportunity. And I've been steering people to it. We do two of these a year. Go and talk to the staff. Like, don't be confrontational, but ask them your questions because they're the experts and they'd love to tell you the answer as to what things we've tried in the past, what the regulations say, some of the quirky things that we do, like Percy's Peaks. They can explain all this to you. Avail yourself of that this Saturday, May 23rd. And then the following Friday is our council's, but it's dubbed the Mayor's Golf Tournament, but it's Council's Golf Tournament on May 29th. And that is going to be a heck of a day out in the links. It's earlier this year. We have been doing it since we started it 3 years ago. We're doing it in the fall, but because of the election and concerns around, electioneering and the perception that this is some kind of glad handing, shake you down for donations event, that is true, but it's meant for the charities, not for the candidates. So we've moved it to May 29th, and for all we know, it may stay this way moving forward with new council, but it doesn't conflict with anyone else's. If you have yet to sign up, I believe there's still room for singles and foursomes. And if you are a business hearing this that would like to get a donation in, either financial or maybe something for the silent auction, just reach out to our talented team here and you'll find all the information on our website at midland.ca/golf. And of course, if you just want to sign up to play, please do. We got a great dinner after. That's at the Brookley. I mean, there's no dinner. Well, there's always a dinner. There's a lunch. Sorry. Yes, lunch, right? Because we moved the thing. Yeah, there's food involved. Yeah, so lunch. Don't come for dinner. Come for lunch. There's food. We got to keep you alive. And there's beverages. And I believe this year there are custard tarts as well as butter tarts. Because I was talking to one of our development friends who brought a couple of boxes last year and they vanished like that. So he's bringing a bunch more up from the city to give away. So if you like those Portuguese custard tarts, oh, I'd eat those things out of the garbage. Anyway, they're going to have a lot of them there, and just come and play golf, and it'll be a good old day. Anyway, there are my four announcements, and I'll let the other folks take the mic now.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Pro. So my announcements are not only the Bisbee Golf people help clean up, but the Ganaraska Hiking Club does go clean up at Little Lake and Pete Peterson Park as well. And my personal experience, like you said, with the doggy poop bags, I mean, they were everywhere. That day, literally, as my wife says, I was full of fill in the blanks. So, thank you.
Do we have any more announcements? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Prost. I just would like to share with you that myself and Councillor Ball, just the two of them? Oh, and Deputy Mayor Prost attended the OSAM conference in Perry Sound. Oh, and Mayor Gordon, sorry. He took it. How could I forget you?
And Councillor Major.
Oh, yes. All right, let me start over again. I would just like to report that Councillor Major, Deputy Mayor Prost, Mayor Gordon, Councillor Ball, and myself attended OSAM in Perry Sound, April 29th, 30th, and the 1st. There was some sessions that were more interesting than others. The most ones that applied to us the most were held on the last day. But one of the most interesting things that I learned was Perry Sound has no upper tier. So they run their own social services department. They have no encampments. Yeah, they look after them. As soon as there's an encampment, they approach the people saying, why are you here? Oh, I'm waiting for a bus to go to Thunder Bay. Here's your ticket. So and then they also have their own economic development department or head. Interestingly enough, he lives in Midland. So, but the one presenter, John Mascarin, partner of Arid Burles, spoke about the strong mayor's powers, and it was really, he stated, his opening statement was, it was established to lead to housing. And the question was, has it led to housing? So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to go to OSAM. Perhaps Midland should consider hosting it sometime. At a new conference center on the water, yeah. I'll be dead and gone.
Mayor Gordon, you have a follow-up?
Just related, I had to leave unfortunately to get back for the grand opening at Prime Fab, which I guess I could do as an announcement too, but it was the news. So I missed that strong mayor presentation, but I did listen to him on CBC kind of summarizing what he was going to be sharing with OSAM. And again, proud to say this, we got a great council. We all agree on the North Star. We don't always agree on exactly the route to get there, but we all agree. And we have this really, really good team. And I'm so proud, and I brag to my peers, I haven't had to use strong mayor powers a single time. And I really don't believe I'll ever have to with this team. So super happy, love it. And it's one of those things where it really hasn't hit Midland. You'll see other municipalities where fractured councils are even more fractured now because of this. And I'm not going to comment as to whether I think the strong mayor was used properly or improperly in those municipalities, but you know, I have my own opinions on those. But I'm so happy that we work together and we move the ball forward. And I've never had to reach into this toolbox. That I can't get rid of this tool. I can't uncouple it from me. I just have it by virtue of the way it works, but I don't have to use it other than in the ways that I have to. Every meeting I sign a thing saying I'm not going to veto the bylaws. I do that at the end of the meeting with everything else. And I look forward to continue doing that until my last day in office. So, and that's a credit to our council. So those cautionary tales that unfortunately I missed at OSAM, but I think I heard most of the spoiler alerts on the radio. I'm so proud that they don't apply to Midland. And thank you. I have to thank you for that.
If I could just add, the new approach to pay for growth, build strong reserves. I'm looking at Bill.
Okay, do we have any more announcements? I have a motion in front of me, moved by Counselor McDonald and seconded by Counselor East, that the Committee of the Whole rise and report. All in favor? It's carried.
Thank you. I got a motion here moved by Councillor Meredith, seconded by Councillor Ball, that the recommendations of Committee of the Whole for the meeting of May 20th, 2026 be adopted as resolutions of council. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And a long one here, moved by Deputy Mayor Pro, seconded by Councillor Major, that the following many bylaws, bylaw 2026-27 to regulate swimming pool enclosures within the town of Midland, and repeal bylaw 99-71. Just a note to people that have swimming pools in your backyard, you may want to read this new bylaw. Bylaw 2026-28, establish rates for water and sewer services related to the operation of systems, and to repeal bylaw 2025-14. Bylaw 2026-29, adopt the estimates of all amounts required for the current year 2026 and to establish the rates of taxation for the current year of 2026. Bylaw 2026-30, authorize the appointment of Heather Miller, welcome Heather, as Director of Finance/Treasurer, and to repeal bylaw 2022-41. Bylaw 2026-31, adopt amendment number 5 to the Town of Midland official plan. And bylaw 2026-32, amend zoning bylaw 2004-90 as amended for the lands municipally known as 983 Yonge Street in the Town of Midland. And bylaw 2026-33, allow a temporary use to establish on certain lands described as part of lots 107 and 108, concession 2, formerly in the Township of Tay, now in the Town of Midland, and municipally known as 475 Bayshore Drive. And bylaw 2026-34, allow a temporary use to establish on certain lands described as Tay Concession 1 and 2, part water lot, part road allowance plan 306, parts 127, 19 and 20, part Quebec Street, part First Street, RP 51R-37949, parts 126 to 13. I feel like I'm reading gibberish. Part 14 in the Town of Midland, County of Simcoe, and having the municipal address of 165 King Street. Wowzers. And part 306, that's where you have to take the breath. Lot 1 to 10, part Quebec Street, part First Street, part Station Grounds, RP 51R, 25853, parts 3, 4, 6 to 13 in the Town of Midland, County of Simcoe, and having a municipal address of 200 King Street. You planners. And bylaw 2026-35, allow a temporary use to establish on certain lands described as concession 1, part lot 105 in the Town of Midland, County of Simcoe, and having municipal address of 527 Lensell Boulevard be passed and enacted. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor Bald. That bylaw 2026-36 being a bylaw to adopt the proceeding of regular council meeting with closed session held May 20th. 2026 be passed and enacted. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And last but not least, moved by Councillor Patel, seconded by Councillor East, that this regular meeting of council will close session adjourn at 5:39 p.m. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.